Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the February 19th, 2025 meeting of the Daytona Beach City Commission. We're happy and delighted to have each of you with us. At this time, we would ask Madam Clerk for a roll call.
Commissioner Strickland?
Here.
Commissioner May? Here. Commissioner Cantu?
Here.
Commissioner Henry?
Here.
Commissioner Reed?
Here.
Commissioner Paris?
Here.
Mayor Derek L. Henry.
Here.
Okay, we'll now move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of the January 22nd, 2025 City Commission meeting.
We have a motion and a second. Do you have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. This time we'll have our agenda approval. If there are any changes, our city manager will address them.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, we're adding to item number 8D, City Manager's Office Mayoral Zone Support, $400 zone support to Spruce Creek High School boys basketball from the funds of Commissioner Paula Reed, $1,000 to T&R Helping Hands Corp. from the Mayoral Zone Support Funds of Mayor Derek L. Henry. We're pulling item number 8K, the Redevelopment and Neighborhood Services Department approval of work order number 039 to conduct a parking study for the Main Street CRA. Item number 9A, Information Technology Systems, establishing a cybersecurity related policy for elected officials. The stipend amount is being changed from $25 to $30 for the elected officials to cover the cost of the devices and data plan, and removing the signature page from the policy. Pulling item number 11A, Public Works Street Maintenance Division approval of work authorization number 32 with Sanderson Concrete Construction, Inc., contract number 22461-SCC. That concludes the changes.
Agenda with approved changes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. No additional questions or comments. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is our presentation. Item 6A is a presentation from the city staff on the upcoming sesquicentennial of the city of Daytona Beach.
Mayor Henry, good evening, commissioners. My name is Julie Varley. I'm the coordinator for the communications and marketing department here at the city of Daytona Beach. I'm pretty excited to be here tonight. I've got a big presentation that our team has worked pretty hard on, and I wanted to start with introducing our team. Got this clicker, so I'll use this tonight. The team that worked on this presentation that I'll be going through tonight was Hazam, Razika, Letitia, LaMagna, Caitlin Prestwood, Charles Smar, and Chad Smith, also alongside their departments. So these are just one individual from a whole department. I'm sure it represents a few other people here. I'm going to pass the mic over here to talk about the Ambassador Committee for our 150th celebration.
So as part of celebrating our 150 years, the city staff is recommending that we create what we're calling the Sesquicentennial Ambassador Committee. So we want to create this committee to assist city staff with promotion and obtaining sponsorships or partnerships throughout the city. This committee will provide feedback to the city commission on potential activities and preparations for the city's 150th celebration. The idea that we have at the makeup of the board is going to be residents of the city or business owners or agents of businesses within the city of Daytona Beach. Each commissioner would recruit and nominate one member. The mayor would recruit and nominate 2 members, and the city manager would recruit and nominate a member. And all members would be appointed by you as the board with the city commission. These will be your ambassadors representing you and the city, and it's, like I said, assisting staff for obtaining sponsorships and cultivating partnerships throughout the city of Daytona Beach. Sometimes that's a little bit easier for people that are movers and shakers and in the know, and you guys know who those are. So we're asking you to help us appoint this board and promote these sponsorships throughout the city. The term would be until January 1st of 2027. We're scheduling it for the first meeting that would take place 30 days after the appointments, and the committee would meet as needed, but no less than once a quarter. is what we're planning. And I will bring back a, excuse me, a resolution at the next meeting to establish the board, if that is the will of the commission. And you can see these are some of our sponsorship and partnership goals that we have for this board and for us as staff as well, in order to bring this vision to fruition.
Okay. Anybody have any opposition to that?
I don't have any opposition, but can we get a printout of this? I can hardly read this screen.
We'll do that.
Contacts and all.
If you guys wanted to scan it to your devices, but we can email it to you digitally after this too. So talking about the timeline, we started planning and discussing this year-long celebration last fall. We hope to have this ambassador committee established by April so that we can kick off meetings in May. We need to start promoting, marketing the celebration at the end of this year so that our celebrations kicks off at the beginning of 2026. So what does this celebration look like for Daytona Beach? This is going to be a year-long celebration, and currently we already have some reoccurring events that take place throughout the year. We're pretty familiar with the Mayor's Fitness Challenge that's taking place right now, our Easter Beach Run that will be its 57th anniversary next year, 56th this year, which is pretty amazing in itself. The Crab and Seafood Festival and our Christmas Parade. These are just a sampling of some of the events that are reoccurring already throughout the city. We want to continue those events, but we would sprinkle a little bit of this 150th celebration throughout these events. So the branding, but then also the messaging. An example would be the Easter Beach Run. Since people have been coming back to this, it's become a tradition for their families. So if we could capture those stories, use those stories to help promote these events. Our communications department was looking at some old videos of these past runs that have taken place here in the city of Daytona Beach, and even just recognizing the shirts that they were wearing over the years was pretty neat for me to see as a graphic designer. It caught my eye, so we could welcome participants to wear their old shirts that they've worn in the past. Also for, these other events, the Mayor's Fitness Challenge, we usually theme the sessions that take place. We could do a similar thing with the sesquicentennial celebration where we tribute Daytona Beach athletes. Vince Carter would be an example of that. We could also think of iconic landmarks or things that have happened over time to set those themes and set that tone. Outside of these reoccurring events that are already taking place, we wanted to do a weekend-long celebration, kind of like a birthday party for the city. We were established in July 26th. So we were thinking in the summer we could do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. We'd kick it off at the Bandshell with our concert. This would be free for our citizens to attend. And then Saturday night would be Friends with the Bandshell, their fireworks show accompanied by music, food, vendors could participate. And then we'd end that weekend-long celebration at our Daisy Stocking Park. It's a great venue. We could bring the community there. We already do school drives at the end of the summer, so this would be a good opportunity to continue those drives and have them take place at the end of this weekend. Accompanying that Friday event, that concert that would happen at the Bandshell, we thought it'd be great to have a VIP area, a lounge. We'd have personal invitations for those that are attending this celebration. They'd have speeches, acknowledgments. We'd provide refreshments, appetizers, and that would accompany that weekend celebration. So we've talked a little bit about a live event. We'd have those reoccurring events that take place, that weekend-long celebration, but we also wanted to think about some digital campaigns that could take place throughout the year. So working with our IT team, we came up with a couple to show you here tonight. Agents of Discovery is an application that can be used on your phone. Port Orange, their Parks and Rec department, uses this app currently. And it's an augmented reality. So you download the app on your phone, you scan an area, so if you're at a local park, and then it would bring up trivia, facts, challenges, games that you can participate in. This would probably speak to a different demographic than some of those live events might, but we want to reach as much of the community as we can with this celebration. I'm going to click on to the next slide, and our great IT team in the back there is going to help us start this example for the City of Desert Hot Springs. It's in California, but they celebrated their 60th anniversary, and this was an app that they used. So you can see they have a mascot, and it's probably familiar to their audience out there on the West Coast, not so much for ours. But they incorporated that little guy into each of these challenges and games that their community could play when they're in their natural landscape. So again, that landscape doesn't look so much like ours here in Florida, but the app here would be in our parks. It would have that as the background. Kids would scan, and it could teach them about the park, the history of the park, why it was named what it's named. I'm going to jump now to another technology that our team worked on, and this portrait will probably be familiar to some of you here. We have portraits out in City Hall for our previous mayors, and they worked with an AI technology to get this mayor to speak. I know, a little off-putting at first. I'm gonna have to admit that when I first watched this, I was a little bit set back, wasn't sure how I was gonna respond. But after I listened to her speak, it helped me feel a little more emotionally connected to her. I was able to hear about her time as the mayor for City of Daytona Beach.
My dear friends, I stand before you with a heart full of gratitude and determination. Our community is strong and our future is bright, but only if we work together. We must uplift our children, support our elders, and ensure that every voice is heard. Leadership is not about power, it is about service. So let us join hands, break down barriers, and build a Daytona Beach that is prosperous, united, and full of opportunity for all. The work is not easy, but together we will rise.
They worked hard on being able to convert quite a few other previous mayors also, and those would be made available not only here in City Hall, but also through a website dedicated to the sesquicentennial as a whole. Of course, we have our social media platforms that we're already currently using. We continue to use those social media platforms to promote events, these reoccurring events, that weekend-long celebration, to try to educate the community about that Agents of Discovery app, these AI headshots, or the mayor's portraits, but then also some neat campaigns that we could do throughout the year. Those could be trivia campaigns, so we could get a little bit more engagement from the community. Milestone Monday was a neat idea that came up where we would feature businesses, and this wouldn't have to be, 20 years around. It could be 5 years that they've been running their business here in Daytona Beach, so that we could highlight them and bring people throughout the community, both big and small. And then countdowns to this July event. So 150 days out from our big celebration, we could make sure to, mention how close we're getting to that event. We didn't want to forget about the academic side of things here in the City of Daytona Beach. We felt that it would be important to consider doing a scholarship. Our idea for the scholarship would be to select 10 students from Daytona Beach, our 2 high schools here, Mainland High School 5, and then 5 from Seabreeze. And we came up with a few different options of how those scholarships could be done. One option being that the students would submit essays written about the academic history of Daytona Beach. Another option, kind of fun, our intern here actually in the communications department came up with this idea, and we thought it was pretty great, about putting on a pep rally held at each of the schools, and then they would do more of a game, a challenge, a trivia rally, where they'd answer questions about the history of Daytona Beach, and then they'd be selected for that scholarship. Another option, of course, would be similar to the Mayor's Honor Program, where the principals would select their students. They could be awarded with this scholarship through a lunch with the mayor, with you, Mayor Henry. Mm-hmm. we were pretty excited about this celebration, so we came up with a lot of ideas. As you can imagine, we were just brainstorming off the wall. But there were a few that really stood out that I wanted to make sure to mention tonight. This top one here, the happy birthday message from key members of the community, stood out. This could be events that happen at the Speedway, the band shell, the Peabody. This could also be through our Parks and Rec department, the programs that they put on, the summer program. And we would have people say happy birthday to the city of Daytona Beach. We'd capture that through video. We could compile all those videos. We could even have elementary schools write their happy birthday messages, make cards for our city, and we could collect all of that here. I clicked blank, so we'll pause for a minute and bring that back. So how does this look visually? We wanted to create a marketing proposal also to present what the sesquicentennial branding would look like. And I'm going to pause here so that Tish, you can pass out. This is actually a 3D printed logo, but I'm also going to put the logos up here on the screen. We created both an emblem version and a wordmark version of the sesquicentennial seal, and this would be used in all of our marketing. We created 2 different logos, and that's for printing on different mediums.
Who made this?
That was printed on a 3D printer that our IT department has here on site. So pretty cool. Our staff was able to create those for you here. I'm going to show you a little preview of what the IT department worked on for a sesquicentennial website. And this website would be dedicated to promoting the events that we talked about. We would also have a shop incorporated in the website. It would be a turnkey, one-stop shop for people to come to, look at merchandise, 150th swag, purchase right there directly through their website, and then it would be sent directly to them. Those mayor's headshots that we all got a little sneak peek of would be on this website. A timeline, history of the city, photographs, as many photographs as we can have, I think would be great to include on this website. And then, of course, we would make it so that it could be used as an app on people's devices. So here's just a quick example of how we would feature events on the website. We'd show what the name of the event is, the time, the location, and we'd have it set up as a calendar so people can look ahead and see what all is going to take place throughout the year. Here's a little sneak peek of how a shop could function, similar to other shops and other websites that you might use, where you're purchasing your apparel and you're seeing the price right there, clicking shop, and then it's sent directly to your home. So what does the marketing strategy look like? This is a lot, right? So these are live events. This is a weekend-long celebration. These are 2 different digital campaigns we're having to educate the public about. We want to get them all involved. We want businesses involved. We want schools involved. We want a lot of people to partake in this celebration. This is not just for me, Julie. This is for everybody in the community to be a part of. So we've got to use some digital marketing. We've got to advertise these events, social media, newsletter communications, our website, and then some printed materials also. If we could get that historical timeline on a brochure format to hand out to the community. If there's a mural that could be created that shows that timeline, I think that would be a great spot for people to stop by, take a picture, and learn a little bit about our community. Banners, of course, we could do our pole banners to feature this celebration, but also, our park banner that we hang up. The city of Orlando is also celebrating their anniversary this year, and I know they dropped a big banner in front of City Hall. So if we could do something like that, it helps, highlight that this is a big deal, because it is. That's a lot of years. I have 2 young children, and this is a huge milestone to be at 150 years. And then, of course, the merchandise that we talked about on the website. We'd want to make sure that not only our employees are representing the city, wearing this swag, our police department, our fire department, they wear different sponsored shirts. They're not sponsored, but, for breast cancer awareness and other events that take place throughout the year. If we could get them some sesquicentennial swag, that'd be great. But also for the community, we want them to be able to wear hats and buy shirts and get cups in their houses so that they can represent the community from home also. So it's been a year-long celebration. We've done a lot, and we wanted to end the year with a published book. And this published book would be a compilation of everything that took place throughout the year 2026, highlighting our history, but also bringing attention to what's happening right now in the city of Daytona Beach. And I know I sped through that. That was a bit of a blur for me, but it was a really exciting project for our team to work on. And I know that there's probably a lot of questions that you each have. I'll make sure that we get the presentation to you in a digital format so that you can skim through it after the meeting. But if you have any questions for me right now, I'd love to.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Harris?
Not a question, but thank you. That was awesome.
that was good.
And I'm glad that I'm here to be part of this 150 years. You guys did a great job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I too wanted to say, I think this is going to be the spark that we need for Daytona. If we can celebrate and have others to celebrate who we are, I think it's going to take us to the next level. It's going to support everything this commission is wanting to do. It's going to make our citizens feel good about who they are. It's going to make those who come visiting us know who we are. The whole marketing, how we've changed our logo and all of that. We are Daytona Beach.
All right. No one?
Thank
Just want
you.
to say thank you.
Let me say, some of us are old enough and have been around long enough to remember 100. And while I was just a little boy, I do remember the 100th celebration in this city. And Sister says, of course, being a history buff, but I do remember the celebration, and it is a big deal, and it's a good thing that even like Mayor Kelly was the mayor at that time, and so he is still around. So I think it's exciting that we will have people of his stature and prominence and who have been a part of our history for a very long time. And there are others who have been around. I dare not say that we have anybody who's been around in a position of prominence since the 75th, but we might. So I would like for us to sort of put out a call to hear from, because there's one gentleman whose father was the mayor in the 50s, still lives here on Beachside in Daytona Beach. So let's have it as an opportunity to celebrate all that we have been and all that we have been through and all that we have become and all that we are becoming. Because I think this commission is very proud of its work. I am very proud of Daytona Beach's history, despite it being, like all of history, a robust set of motions and activities and energies coming together to create a destiny that is not perfect, but that has a lot of things to be proud of. And so I think as a part of this year's celebration, we should celebrate all of the things, and I saw that in it, so it's not a criticism, but we should celebrate all the things that we have done. And a lot of that has been done. We're highlighting much of it now, even from the statue of Dr. Bethune and, the $400 million renovation at the racetrack, what we're doing at the Jack. All of that is a part of our history and in our contemporary history and the things that we're doing now, because we're treading on unprecedented or uncharted ground in Daytona Beach in a lot of ways as it relates to our development and our evolution in the last 10 or 15 years. So let's bring all of that together, bring all of the people that we can. And I'm very proud because I don't know when it was that I mentioned to the manager that this is our 150th year. And I'm very pleased with what you all have done in light of that conversation a while back, and then you guys just went off and came back with this, and this is beautiful. And so, as Commissioner Reed said, I think it's an opportunity for us to truly celebrate, and not only celebrate, but to unite in a time where we have, deep polarization and problems and people having their issues for whatever reasons that they have. Let's show people the Daytona way, which I believe is a unique way in American history. I refer to us as the birthplace of the modern civil rights movement, with that simple opportunity that Jackie Robinson was given in our city. So let's celebrate all of that and all of the glory that is uniquely our own. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to commend the team for that. Commissioner Paris had a conversation with me earlier about the 150th birthday celebration, and as a team, we did want to have a representative from the commission to be able to attend many of our meetings and be a liaison to bring that information and updates to the commission throughout the year. And so I know Commissioner Paris was interested in that, and I wanted to know if you all would allow for her to serve in that role, to work with staff to bring information back to you all throughout the year for this celebration.
I'm very happy to have you serve in that role. I think you do a great job.
Sure enough. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are we going to put any more of those I love Daytona Beach signs? We mentioned putting more of those around town. Where are we with that?
Well, when Assistant City Manager Betty Goodman was here, we were trying to get sponsors because they are significant price. So during this centennial, we're hoping to go after some of those additional partners to put one in front of on the boardwalk, at the Jack, things of that nature, at the Speedway. So those are still things we're looking at.
Thank you.
What does each one cost approximately?
I think it was about $25,000 to $30,000.
Thank you for doing it. Thank you for doing it.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to item number 7, which is our citizen comments. And during this time, citizens have the opportunity to address the City Commission on any item on the consent agenda. And it looks like I have one speaker, Mr. John Nicholson.
Great job.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I know you pulled 8K, but we've been waiting on the beachside for this for 25 years. It was promised again in 2003 that we would have it. We have problems every single year on Memorial Day, backups. Some of you have heard what happened 3 weeks ago when the Ocean Center had a sold out, Peabody had a sold out, and people were an hour and a half late getting the performances. This has been going on again forever, all right? We're delaying it again, all right? But I'm asking you, when you ask these people to do this survey, do not have them do the survey on driving on the beach on January, which is what they did the last time. We don't have a lot of traffic on the beach in January. So why sit there and say, oh, there's no problem? Don't have them do the study when nobody's here, which is what we did the last time. So when you look at the parking garage, when we did the expansion of the Ocean Center, all right, they were supposed to add parking. They didn't. The city said, oh, well, it's okay, you don't have to. Well, they should have added an entire parking garage of over 1,000 cars. So we are short 1,000 cars already, all right? So when you tell them that they can't use the garage because it's committed, there are 500 spaces in that parking garage committed because we took driving off the beach. So there isn't 1,500 cars there. We don't have that luxury. There's only 1,000. But then you have to take away the 200 that we took away that existed before you got the garage. And then you have to take away the 200 that we committed to the lagoon. Then you got to take away the 250 that we committed to the theater. By the time you're done with it, When we built the garage, we were short. We built the expansion of the Ocean Center. We're short another 1,000. So when they do this, look at it carefully. Tell them in advance that these things are committed, because they don't know that. They don't have the history. So please, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. We've been waiting for 20 years. The people at the Ocean Center, their hands are tied. Peabody's hands are tied. They want to sell out, but without parking, it's going to be a bad deal for both of them. Thank you.
John, Peabody sells out quite a bit.
Not when the Ocean Center is sold out, there's a lot across the street.
I don't know about that, John.
That was my final speaker on the
That's
consent agenda.
inaccurate. Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second.
Nope.
Motion, second. Commissioner Reed, Commissioner May, in that order. All right, do we have any questions? All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. This motion carries 7-0.
Okay. We're going to move on to item number 9, which is our public hearings and quasi-judicial hearings. Item 9A is Information Technology System, establishing a cybersecurity-related policy for elected officials. This is an ordinance on second reading public hearing. An ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach establishing a cybersecurity-related policy regarding acceptable use of city information technology system and resources for elected officials, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for Scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
Have a motion and a second.
Mayor and City Commissioners, I just want to point out one thing. The manager mentioned when referring to the agenda changes, that with regard to this item, that there was going to be a change in the stipend, Mr. Pietro, I think from $25 to $30.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've looked at the draft ordinance actually states currently that that stipend would be approved by the commission by resolution. So the change is going to be, I'll revise the draft to say that the initial stipend will be $30 and any future changes to the stipend will be made by resolution. Just in case anybody was confused by that comment, and just to make sure the specific change would be clear.
And I have no one signed up to speak as far as public speakers on this item.
What? Okay. All right, I know we have commission discussion in place. Do we have a speaker? Come on, Miss Ruby.
Are we gonna,
We're
we're not
gonna
gonna
hear
have
from the
discussion
speakers
first?
first.
So our first speaker is Pierre Lewis, and on deck is Ann Ruby.
Pierre Lewis, 130 South Franklin Street. Amber's going to talk about that. If I had any comments to make on this as a person that was a retired cybersecurity officer for many, many years, I mentioned of some, and I looked at it and asked me to look at some of the stuff that's there. And I can say from my endpoint, it's a very sound program that's there. Information that's there. And I've been at it for a while, and I was what they call a hacker, believe it or not. And there's a difference between a hacker and a cracker. A cracker is the term that was used many years ago when individuals went out there and they did malicious intent. A hacker was an individual that made sure that software ran appropriately. So sometimes we misuse those terms over the years, and that's actually what it is. But my point still that I wanted to make about that, as I looked at the program and I talked to my colleague about that, is that the reason I think it's so sound, but it's also outdated. And the only reason I say it's outdated because in the cybersecurity world, things are changing so fast in a matter of seconds. Polymorphic viruses and stuff like that exist every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, stuff like that, and data is outdated. I mentioned a number of times when I say data and information because a lot of times in the dialogue that I heard the last time when people were talking about this, well, we kind of got into a point of personalizing between an individual and an individual. When you're looking in the world of cybersecurity, it's never really about a person. Mm-hmm. It's always about the data, and it's always about the information. It's always about a particular device. A device, as a person that's a hacker, is really not looking for your family photos or your pictures and stuff like that. What a hacker is most of the time is looking for is to allow someone to say, when I've attached myself to that IP or that device, I could be in Bukistan or Russia or somewhere like that, and I'm mimicking that device that's there in Daytona Beach, in Holly Hill, in Korea and Japan, stuff like that. As you know, in the military, we deal with a number of that, but they're really not trying to get your family photos. That's something for Hollywood. They say that, but they're not. They're really just trying to show you that they're in one place and triangulate that and seeing there's somewhere else. The point that I really want to get across is to understand it's always about protection of the data. And the plan that you have that's right there falls in line with what needs to be done is affecting their data. And also, I talked to a friend of mine that works at the, I'm 47 seconds, that works at Embry-Riddle, Colonel Kim Ramos. She's done the same thing for 30 years. And we kind of discussed and went back and forth about that. Just Pierre, you're exactly right. That's the way you should make sure you frame it in that fashion. Frame it that once an individual or a device, because it not be that person, but that device enters into a municipal government, their network, it's always subject to the policies that are there, that device, because you never know who's using that device. You may think it is that one particular individual, but in actuality, it's what we call a bad actor. And that bad actor could be somebody that's using it. And I'm running out of time, but never forget it's the data and the information and not the individual.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ann Ruby.
Ann Ruby, 137 Park Avenue. I did have a very interesting discussion with Mr. Pierre Lewis, and I have to say it's more terrifying than I ever thought it was. I think one of the things that's really critical to understand is that municipalities are target-rich environments. They're not going to try to hack Amazon because Amazon can afford to pay for a lot of virus protection. They can afford to pay for a lot of cybersecurity. We need to do everything we can to keep our data and our information safe. And when you get hacked, when you get violated, it's very expensive and it's very time consuming to get it repaired and get things restored and back online. And it's not something that we should be fooling around with. So I think it is a very sound policy. What's being asked in terms of compliance from y'all is not unreasonable. And I think it's something we have to do. As I said in my, I borrowed an analogy in my email to y'all that Pierre Lewis gave me, was that if you have information in your office and your office is behind a locked door and your office catches on fire, do you want the city manager or somebody to have the key to open your office and put out the fire, or should the whole building burn to the ground? And that's one way to think about this if you need to kind of get your head around it. Because, somebody coming in through your hacked laptop or your hacked cell phone could effectively burn everything down. And it's not worth messing with. So I think this is a great ordinance in terms of being an ounce of prevention to prevent a costly pound of cure. And I hope y'all vote yes. Thank you.
Those were my only two speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Who wants to speak first to this item?
I will.
Okay.
I'm probably the longest.
All right.
Okay. First, I just want to say for the record, I am not against any kind of cybersecurity policy. Actually, I do think one should be in place for the elected officials, and I'm fine with that. There's no problem whatsoever with a cybersecurity policy. But there is a problem to me is regarding the city charter. I took an oath and I'm not going to violate the city charter. I know Mr. Gross, our city attorney, has brought something forward, sent us all, and he doesn't believe we will. I personally believe it will violate. I also will go a step even further with our city-issued tablets and city phones. I believe we shouldn't have any apps on there going on Facebook, iTunes. These are city government. I do not have any apps on anything. I have my personal tablet and my personal phone that I put Publix app, Dunkin' Donuts app, iTunes, whatever, Facebook. So I don't mind having a policy on ourselves as the commission. The mayor already has executive power if something happens like COVID he has executive power to sign something already. So we pay the manager big bucks as well. If there was something happening in cybersecurity, just like Mr. Pierre Lewis has said, it's not going to happen with one tablet. And the manager has the authority to call, that's his job, to call the mayor. The mayor signs it. We don't have to wait for a commission meeting. The mayor can give the power. Yes, take it down. We can call a special meeting, shade meeting, whatever it is. But where I'm getting from, I disagree with our city attorney, and I'm not sure if anybody is familiar with Liberty Counsel. They're a big Constitution lawyers, a big firm. They have offices in D.C., Florida, and Virginia. Mr. Stemberger, some of my colleagues might know him. He actually grew up in Daytona and went to school here. I'm going to just give you a little history on him before I go further. He is the president of the Liberty Counsel Action, AV rated, legal and policy over 35 years, 1992 political director for President George Bush. Governor Jeb Bush twice appointed him in the Judicial Circuit Court of Florida, served 8 years, appointed to serve on the Florida Constitution Revision Commission, 2017 Council of National Policy, member chairman of the board of Wynn Family Services in Baltimore, Child Welfare Agency with foster care, support services, drug abuse, counseling, child and family services, admitted to the U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. 11 Circuits Court of Appeal, U.S. Federal Court, Middle District of Florida. He went to DBCC, graduate, United Way rep. So I can go on and on. He has a huge list. Okay. Well, I actually contacted him, and like I said, he is a senior counsel for the Liberty Counsel, and you can go ahead and put the first one up. I contacted him with all the information. I sent over Mr. Gross's thing he sent to us as well. You can go to the next slide. And his Associate Vice President of Legal Affairs, Mr. Daniel Smith. This is what he wrote to John and sent over to me. It says, Florida Local Government Cybersecurity Act, Florida Statute 282.315 only provides the local governments must enact cybersecurity policy, but it does not specify the exact requirements of the policy. Florida Statute 282.3185-4A. Each local government shall adopt cybersecurity standards that safeguard its data, information technology, and information technology resources to ensure availability, confidentiality, and integrity. The cybersecurity standards must be consistent with generally accepted best practices for cybersecurity, including the National Institution of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. Nowhere in the statute or in the related I've already lost my line. Say, State Cybersecurity Act, Florida Statute 282.318, does it require having a policy in place that permits a single individual to have unlimited or unbridled discretion to shut an entire government communication network down at will. The State Cybersecurity Act only provides that there should be a protection procedures to manage the protection of the agency information data and information technology resources. Florida Statute 282.318 3C4, but does not require implementation, of the specified policy. Daytona Beach Charter states, to its provisions and subject only to the limitations imposed by the state constitution and by the charter. All powers of the city shall be vested in an elected commission, which shall enact ordinance, adopt budgets, determine policies, and appoint the city manager who shall execute the laws and administer the government of the city. Charter, what is that? I'm not sure, 3. The commissioners get to set this. I'm sorry, I'm losing my tablet just went out. Hold on. I don't know where I lost. Okay. Commissioners get to set the city policies, and the city manager executes them. The city manager does not get to set what the city policies is and execute it according to his desires. That gets the procedure exactly backwards. More specified in 6, Section 28 that Mr. Gross has put in front of us, which is referenced that the communication you sent me, the powers and duties of the city manager are further restricted to only those things the commission puts in place. It states the city manager shall be responsible to the commission for the proper administration of all affairs and departments of the city government, including the police, the fire departments, and shall carry out the ordinance, policy, and regulation adopted by the city commission. I see nothing in the charter of the Florida statutes that requires imposition of anything on elected officials. And there is certainly nothing that precludes the Daytona Beach Commission from rejecting proposals from the city manager attempting to act in excess of his authority. But I went a little bit further because I called him because I had a specific question, and that's up. As Stacy, as brief follow up on our conversation a moment ago, it would violate the charter to devise a policy, ordinance, or regulation that elevates the city manager above the elected officials of the commission. 6, Section 27 states that city commission shall appoint a city manager who shall be the administrative head of the municipal government under the direction and supervisor of the city commission, and shall hold office from the date of an appointment until discharged by the commission, and shall at all times serve the pleasure of the city commission. You cannot serve at the commission's pleasure and be an authority of them. So this is a huge law firm that is giving me this advice. So I don't know what my colleagues wants to do. I am no problem of putting a policy in place for the elected officials. And it goes a step further if we do put a policy, because elected officials are the body. If I'm out of the seat, it carries on to the next commissioners unless they have a meeting and decide they don't want it. So I am just not going to vote and violate my city charter and the oath I took and give the city manager authority over the elected body. And that would be whatever you guys do, but I know how I'm voting.
Yeah, I agree. First of all, I've not seen any of that information
and I got
before.
It last minute, but I did
Yeah.
tell you.
Second of all, I agree with a lot of what's in the memo. I mean, in fact, let me just go through a couple of the points, and I don't have it in front of me. The attorney who wrote that memo is correct that the statute that requires the city to adopt a cybersecurity policy consistent with best management and cybersecurity practices only expressly requires employees to go through cybersecurity training. The fact that it only requires employees to go through cybersecurity training, while at the same time requiring cities to adopt cybersecurity policies in accordance with best management practices, combined with the fact that when one of our IT staff previously wrote to all city employees and all of you saying, hey, you need to do some training, and as part of the response to that email, I believe felt, whether it was intended or not by one of the members of this body, threatened, led to the need for this ordinance. I'm going to finish based on my understanding from talking with Mr. Fiecher and the IT director, because I think in the IT director's view, and he is the only expert we have on hand as to what best management practices are, it's critically important that all users of the IT system do things, for example, such as training. And if, in the face of a refusal by one of you to do that training, what I'm told by the IT director is if one option was to schedule either a special meeting with you or ask for the mayor to issue an executive order based on an emergency, and I have not researched whether the power to declare an emergency would extend to this. If that's one option, what I am told by your expert, your IT director, is that in and of itself may not comply with best management cybersecurity practices. Now, certainly, Commissioner Cantu's already stated that the statute would allow the manager or designee to shut down the system in case of a cyber attack. However, my understanding of best management practices in cybersecurity is that those practices may require somebody's access to be removed before there's an attack, when there may not be an attack. When, for example, somebody repeatedly refuses to comply with certain types of safeguards, training, other things, that the actual need to wait on an elected body to make a decision may create an unnecessary risk. And in addition, I have reviewed our cybersecurity insurance policy, which, first of all, as is typical of many insurance policies, can give an insurance company an out from covering liability when the insurance company determines that the insured has acted negligently. One standard for determining negligence is whether you've complied with standard industry practices. The industry at issue is not local government, it's corporate organizations of all stripes. So, not complying with best management practices may expose us to a situation where we don't have coverage in the event of cybersecurity attacks. In addition, our particular policy has a deductible. That deductible is based on a scale consisting of the number of days that we have, maybe in a certain instance, failed to comply with best management practices. The deductible gets higher the longer the delay. So I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but your cybersecurity expert is concerned that having to wait until you as a city commission make a decision that one of your members' access should be temporarily suspended itself creates cybersecurity risks. And in light of past conflicts between one of the members of this elected body and administrative staff, that's exactly what precipitated the need for this policy. Now, I disagree with the conclusion, if there is one, and I haven't had time to study it, that the charter does not allow you to give the manager this authority. In fact, the charter specifically says it's your authority. It's your authority to give to somebody, whether it's the mayor or the manager, to take this action. I'm not aware of any restrictions in the Florida Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, the state statute, our own charter, or the statute that we're talking about here that only required employees to do training. I'm not aware of any restrictions that would prohibit you from adopting this ordinance. When Commissioner Cantu mentioned to me earlier today that she was going to be talking with these attorneys, I offered to participate in a discussion because, whatever else happens, I don't think it's a particularly excellent result to be in a situation where there's a lawsuit between one elected official and the government. But at the same time, based on what I've seen displayed on the board, I don't think there's a need for you to wait. I'd be happy to have further discussions with Commissioner Cantu and the attorney to see if there are changes that they would like. I don't think it's necessary. I'm confident that this ordinance would be legal. Thank you.
Okay,
Let me ask
I
this
like
question.
to, can I rebuttal on this? Okay, if you don't mind, what he just said, because he was referencing.
I'm going to let you rebut, but
Okay.
I need to ask this question because I've already forgotten. So we can create this ordinance if instead of the manager having the authority, is the suggestion from Commissioner Cantu from the last commission meeting is that authority would maybe be in my hands? Is that what at the last meeting she said that? Is that permissible?
Mayor, my recollection is that the suggestion was that instead of delegating it to the manager, it be delegated to the IT director. I haven't had a chance to research this issue. I actually think it could create a problem because well, I'd have to research that further, and I don't want to go into details on why I think that could create a problem. But I think that anytime the commission's taking authority and delegating something that arguably you should also you should be exercising in a group. The idea is you may have to exercise that in a sunshine setting in a public meeting that has to be scheduled. In contrast, the charter already provides the manager with administrative authority.
Yes.
Your decision to authorize him would just be clarifying a provision of the charter that may arguably right now give the manager authority, but that authority has been put into question by past conflicts. So,
But does this allow the manager to terminate our use if we don't take those classes?
Not necessarily. I'm going to refer to the ordinance specifically. So the ordinance does say that you all intend to comply with the policy, which is an attachment. But the ordinance also, and I apologize, I'm trying to find the ordinance so I can read from it.
Would you like me to send it to you?
No, it's here. I've got all of the ordinance printed, Commissioner. Okay, here we go. The ordinance makes it clear that the manager cannot, or designee, cannot suspend access merely because of a violation of policy. The standard is, does the violation, I'm going to read from the ordinance. Does the violation make it reasonably necessary for the manager to take action to protect network resources from cybersecurity threats? Is there an immediate threat, an imminent threat, or to comply with cybersecurity best practices? Now, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but I understand that there's a difference or a potential difference between whether there's an imminent threat and whether best management practices, aside from an imminent threat, would be violated. And again, I think the reason why the second one of those is important is because failing to comply with best management practices, and they exist, in fact, we've referred in the ordinance to the same best management practices that are referred to in the statute, and those are the practices adopted by the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. So if those best management practices dictated that after, I'm going to come up with hypothetical, I've asked a user 3 times on 3 different occasions to take the training. If the best management practices said you should remove that person's access afterward, then the manager would have authority under those circumstances to temporarily remove access. And if the user, in this case, the elected official, disagreed with that, then the ordinance also says that you have the final decision-making authority. That could be brought to you all.
Yeah, but by that time, he would have already have been able to suspend the privilege. And I don't know that part should be in there. I think it should only be if it's an imminent danger.
Well, and you have that choice.
Yeah.
The concern I would have, and it's just the risk that you would run, is you are giving an insurance company latitude to decline coverage in case there are damages that the city pays from a cyber attack because of a failure to comply with best management practices. And having said that, I am not enough of a cybersecurity expert to know how likely it is to create that logical link between those two. I'm just not able to do that.
Well, Governor DeSantis is the one who put this in place in the first place, and the board in place. I definitely disagree. And you asked a question that actually wasn't answered. You asked, the mayor asked if he has executive power in case of emergency. He does. He's done it before during COVID. The manager gets paid big bucks where he can call the mayor and say, shut it down, the system. One call. I mean, so, and as Mr. Pierre has said, it's not going to be one certain device in the first place. Now, yes, I do know how this started. And he has a separate email directly from me, Mr. Gross. I don't mind taking these classes at all. I have taken them. But the reason this started, because I know what I'm required and supposed to do as an elected official. And when someone is challenging me and telling me this is a state law, and that state law clearly says employees and not elected official. If you're going to challenge me and then keep challenging me, I'm going to go back. And which Mr. Gross knows, he received an email from the Capitol stating that if he wants us to do those classes, he has the opportunity to go lobby the state and have them put in elected officials, because the act clearly states employees only. But like I said, I have no problem putting a policy in place for elected officials, by this policy. I do have a problem by the going against the city charter, and these are well-known lawyers, and I'm going to read something else, which I didn't put up, just real quick. It's a really short. John says, Daniel, what is the recourse? What happens if they still violate the law and ignore it? Can the court issue an injunctive relief? I assume Stacy would have the standing to bring an action to enforce the law. John, Stacy, I certainly think the commissioner would have a standing to challenge the ultra vires action of any commission, particularly if Gross violates the charter. And then he says, there are a host of good local government lawyers who could bring such an action, and I believe it would be successful.
You know,
I hear what you're saying.
Commissioner Cantu and I have had a lot of discussions about.
I have talked to you before, but
Sure.
actually I got this the last minute, and everyone will get copies.
That's okay. And let me just say for the record that their reference to Gross is not referring to me. I think they're referring to it. Yeah, no. That's
a word.
No, I get it. I get it. But listen, Mayor, your concern a few minutes ago. I'm not here to defend the policy. I'm just explaining to you the policy basis that I. Suspend access in order to protect the network resources from cybersecurity threats, and to comply with cybersecurity best practices. You have authority to do that. You do. You absolutely have that authority.
We still have authority. I mean, without breaking the charter and not giving the manager authority, and giving the mayor, who has the executive power as well.
Commissioner,
no, let me finish, because I wasn't finished when you interrupted me.
Mm-hmm.
But we do, as you're stating, the manager, but we still have the power as elected body to give the mayor, who has executive power in case of emergency, instead of the manager. So there's no difference. What you're saying, give the manager, but giving the mayor. The manager can call the mayor with one phone call. We could have a backup. If he doesn't get a hold of the manager, whoever's the vice mayor at the time, he calls if the manager, and that could be put in that policy.
The only thing I don't know, because I haven't had the opportunity to research it, is whether the scope of the statute that deals with the declaration of public emergencies would cover these events. I don't know the answer to that. Certainly, if it does, then that would be an alternative.
I can't imagine that it's not because cybersecurity constitutes a public emergency.
Correct.
I don't know how it does.
Yes.
Mayor, I would want to read the statute and just verify it.
Okay.
But look, going back to the initial question, I disagree that the ordinance as written is illegal. It would be legal. You're not obligated to adopt this ordinance as written. You're not obligated to adopt this as an ordinance. You could give the same effect by adopting it as a resolution. Staff thought that this would be better as an ordinance because it would be codified, it would be in the code book, it would be clear, it would hopefully avoid disputes. It obviously hasn't done that. You all have a lot of discretion here, but notwithstanding.
What's the difference in a resolution and an ordinance in this sense?
Well, I don't think there's a difference in effect. I mean, this isn't anything that's going to result in potential criminal penalties like an ordinance would that says, you can't encroach in a setback or you can't jaywalk. The purpose that staff told me was behind doing this as an ordinance is it gets in the code. And if there's future commissions and future managers, it's more easily found. And there's no disputes as to what's what. But no, this isn't required to be adopted as an ordinance. And frankly, Commissioner, I think you and I talked about this because I was trying to make sure I understood exactly what your concerns were. I don't think if this were drafted as a resolution with the same language, I don't think that would relieve your concerns, correct?
I'm actually okay with elected officials putting this policy in place. And I've repeated it over and over. I'm okay with us having a policy in place, but we are the elected body over the manager, and it violates our city charter. I know you disagree, but I have lots of lawyers that agree with me. Okay, it violates our city charter. The mayor has the executive power in case of emergency, and he has the power. The manager can call him and turn it off. If there's something that they can't get a hold of the manager, just like I said, we're still covered, whoever the vice president is at the time. Then we call emergency meeting, shade meeting, whatever it has to be, and we discuss what is going on. Which if we're getting hacked in the first place, I'm sure they're getting ready to call emergency meeting. Or we got a ransom going on. I keep repeating, just like he said, it's not going to be one Pacific tablet. All we do is communication back and forth on our tablets. We have, if you look at that statute as well, it actually states all high level, we don't have any of that. We don't have bank accounts, we don't have nothing. Everything we do in communication is public records in the first place. I mean, everything on our tablet is public record. So, I mean, I'm okay, I keep repeating this, with a policy. I'm okay to take these classes. The only reason it was challenged and I won, and he received it, because it was for employees and not, don't tell me something that is not true. Because if I know it's not true, I'm going to challenge it. But he has an email sent directly to him that states, I will take those classes, I do not mind. I just do not want to be challenged and told it's a state law for elected officials. I have read that whole
It's not a state law, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I ever thought I had to take the class, because I never ever one day or moment have thought that, and known that I didn't, and known that they couldn't turn my system off because I didn't take them, and I don't want them to be able to turn it off if I don't take it. So that's why I'm not in favor of that part of the ordinance. So I wouldn't support that part. But if it's an imminent threat, then it's different. But can you weigh in on the proposition that she's making as it relates to if this authority were, if we had an issue and I were to declare a state of emergency to turn off someone's access?
Can I just say, if we are the elected body, we make the decisions. If we give you the power to turn us off.
We can't necessarily do that, though. We can't just give me a power because I'm not the administrator.
We're giving the manager a power.
But I'm not the administrator. Okay. I'm not the day-to-day administrator.
You already have executive power.
But that's in the case of an emergency.
Correct. This would be emergency.
Well,
Mayor and Commission, I don't know the answer to that. I could certainly research it.
Yeah,
and I could get back to you. I just don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would entertain that idea, even though I didn't want to be bothered with that. I understand what her point is, but it's not necessary if the rest of the commission doesn't favor that. I certainly do not favor the portion that, for what I think could be a frivolous cause, would enable the manager to turn it off.
And
I'm not saying that he would do that, but I don't. That's You don't give someone a power because the next person may not be him,
Agree.
you know, so it doesn't matter.
And we're not talking about the wisdom of that. I was focusing on the legality of it, which I think is a
That's
different
right,
issue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Commissioner Cantu and I have spoken, what is the pleasure of the remaining members of this commission? Yes.
Mayor, I'd feel more comfortable if Ben came back to us to let us know about that option. And also, you brought up about us not being covered by our insurance. I find that very scary. So if you could, this is the first time I'm hearing about that part. So if you could research that also. and let us
I've
know.
researched it, and we may need to break into a cybersecurity meeting to get more into the weeds on that issue
Okay.
at some point.
But I would prefer and feel more comfortable revisiting this.
Yeah.
Okay. Same?
Same.
Okay. Any other sentiments?
We can definitely revisit it. I'm all for the city manager being able to, if it's an imminent threat, be able to turn off computers. Also, I do want to know just what else can happen if Commissioner Cantu just decides, and she's pretty much already decided that she's not going to comply with this. And I honestly, I don't care one way or the other because I just don't in this particular incident.
No, I'll comply with it.
Huh?
I'll comply with cybersecurity.
She's just gonna have her own
Correct.
device.
But what I'm saying is, that's not the end of my question. Can she just be excluded from everything else that we decide on? Can we just say, okay, well, Commissioner Cantu is going to be up here doing her own thing? Because, you know, sometimes one of the people is always going to do their own thing. How can that work?
I don't have an answer for you, Commissioner. And one thing I'm going to be really clear on, when I was telling you what my understanding was of the various kind of cybersecurity issues, I was relating to you information that I'd received that I needed to determine that the ordinance would be legal. I am not your cybersecurity expert, and I think if you have those kind of questions, you should ask them of your cybersecurity, your cybersecurity expert.
That's not a part of that question, that the last part of her question.
It is not.
No. Doesn't
Well,
have
I mean,
anything to do
how's
with
it
cyber.
workable? That's a question for you all to decide, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, to suffice it to say, I'm okay with the city manager. I'm not okay with having to call the mayor. I know the mayor. I've known him for 50-something years.
Don't answer his phone.
And I've known the mayor for 50-something years, and that's all I'm going to say. I think he's a wonderful mayor. I think he does wonderful at his job, but being able to maybe reach him at the very last second when he might be dealing with a student that's throwing throwing shoes at the teacher, he may not quite be available right there. I know I've called him. His mom has called him, and I've called him sometimes to rush his mom to the hospital and couldn't quite get him right away. It took a little while to get him. I'm not okay with that.
I agree with that. I understand.
Hearing
I'm
the
not okay with the vice mayor because I don't know the vice mayor's schedule, but I do know that the city manager is who we pay to be here for certain hours and to be reached for certain emergencies. That's who I pay. That's who I'm going to expect to handle those situations. I'm just not going to be okay with a mayor or the vice mayor or the vice mayor or even the IT guy.
All right.
Can I throw out a couple of suggestions that I think might reflect a consensus? First of all, put aside ordinance or resolution for a minute. The current language says, prior to removing, suspending the access, the manager would provide the elected official advance notice and advise of the steps, right? And it currently says the exception is, as I said, when removing access is reasonably necessary to protect network resources or to comply with cybersecurity practices. If we deleted the second of those and made it clear that we were talking about to protect network resources from imminent cybersecurity threats, and then provided that in other instances, the manager would have to present it to the commission for a determination. Is that acceptable to the commission? You might want to hear from your cybersecurity person whether there's cybersecurity threats created by that, but is that acceptable to you as a commission?
Bring it back and check.
I mean, I could redraft it along those lines. If I get some direction, I could
You
I
can
could do that as
redraft
well.
it along those lines, but redraft it along those lines with the the questions answered that they agreed to on this side, which was 3 people.
Right,
and 4 people.
And that question is, instead of authorizing the manager, could it go through the executive order authority under the statute dealing with emergencies?
Yeah.
I'll have.
That way we have all the information.
I'll have both of that.
Then we have
Yeah.
that. Because I'm okay with that, what you just said.
Sure.
Because I'm also okay with it going to the manager. But I understand what she's saying, and I don't disagree with it. And that's why in part of it, I certainly agree with the portion, because it's you just get to a point where you want to make certain that things are done today in the same way you want them done 25 years from now, or the next commission and down the line. So, okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I
Commissioner
didn't
Reed.
get to say anything.
Yes, ma'am. All right.
I like it just the way it is. I'm prepared to vote tonight. I was waiting for someone to say that before the manager would take that step, it indicates he would call that elected official and let them know that there's going to be a situation, or there is a situation. Cybersecurity, imminent threat, best practices. I am not prepared for the insurance company to not cover us in the event that we have a situation. I'm not prepared for that. And I'm not prepared to answer to the citizenry if we make that decision. We give the manager authority all the time to make decisions. That's what we do. The authority given to him would be from us to be able to do this. He can't do it unless we say do it. So I'm prepared to vote, but you can come back with what all y'all need to come back with.
Can you say that again? You said he cannot do it unless you give him permission. We don't mean by policy. Do you mean in that particular situation? So he would call and say, hey, we're having an issue. This is what I intend to do. Is that what you mean?
No, that's not what I mean.
What do you mean?
I'm saying if we give him the authority that this ordinance is saying, we give him authority all the time. Sometimes we vote on things that require some monetary, and it's going to be larger than what we expected, and we say the manager has the authority beyond that meeting to take the necessary steps monetarily. To me, this is similar, that if we have a situation and the manager needs to move forward on it, he will do that. It indicates that he'll call which one of us is having a situation before he even takes that step.
Yeah.
We're giving him that authority to take that step.
But it's not similar. You're not
It's similar to me.
You're not. I might be similar to you, but it's not similar. You're not getting the point to what I'm trying to express. We give him authority. Yes, he is the city manager. He oversees all the employees. We give it to him all the time. But we've never given him authority over the elected body, and that violates the city charter. So that's the difference here.
I don't think it's over the elected officials. It's the elected officials saying, if we're in imminent danger of cybersecurity, and if we're messing up best practices of the internet, then you have the authority to call that person if they're messing up, and you have the authority to shut that particular computer off. Nobody ever said, and you've said this a couple of times, that it's going to be more than one computer. It could be one computer. In fact, after our last meeting, the next day, the governor had to do something with the health department, if I'm not mistaken. It was like $900,000 because they had been hacked. So it's happening, people. And the longer we take to decide whether we're going to do something about this or not, we allow ourselves to be potentially in danger.
And yes, I agree. Governor DeSantis did put this law and has put that cybersecurity team together. But we are giving the city manager, and it violates the charter. I'm not going to say anything different. The elected body has the power, yes. And
Okay, we're being
I think the majority has already spoken in terms of making it come back in the form that they have.
One other request,
yeah.
and that is, when we do this, I don't know if we have to do this in private, see the portion of the insurance that says this is what
Yeah, absolutely.
happens.
Absolutely.
Can you send that to all of us
Oh,
so
yeah.
we can see it in writing and
Sure.
know that this is what it is and know that this is what we see to be true?
Sure.
Okay.
What would
thank
the
you.
what would the new languaging sound like, do you think? Like, what would the intent be when you come back of the new languaging? Just curious.
Well, based on what I think most of you were saying, it would
Call my mama.
it would well, it would do one of two things, right? If it was clear that that in all instances in which you had a cybersecurity risk, the mayor under the statute has authority to declare an emergency order. It sounds to me like what you all want is for the manager to make that request to the mayor, and then the mayor would invoke that removal as an emergency order.
Commissioner Kent, I'm sorry? Would that, what Attorney Grosser said, would that satisfy you with regard to the wording?
I'm gonna have to talk, I'm gonna talk to him more, and I prefer him to bring it back, and he can actually talk to the lawyers that I have as well on this, because he said he wanted to, and I just got this the last minute before the commission meeting. So,
The idea that the city, I'm just curious, the city manager would contact the mayor, and the mayor, as part of the elected body, would then go ahead and say, and this is what we're going to do. But it'd be like,
yeah,
so you'd be
I would-
okay with
I
that?
would be okay with that, because he's not over the elected
Right.
body, and it doesn't violate our city charter.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And just to be clear, I am not concerned about the legal conclusions that Commissioner Cantu's attorneys talked about. I take what you're referring to as being policy concerns on your
Yeah,
part.
and
so-
I agree, I'm fine with that, because we're not putting him over the elected body.
Mayor, would you be okay with the
Mayor
city
don't wanna
manager
do that.
contacts you? If we gave you permission at that point, city manager contacts you, and then you say, yes, go ahead and do whatever?
No.
Well,
Yeah,
he has the
yeah.
executive
I
power.
said before I didn't want to be bothered with that because I think this is. I really think in my heart that this is a trivial matter. But when you make a decision, it has to be, legally right and the right thing to do. So I will do what I believe and vote on what I believe.
So, I mean, I'm obviously in favor of policy. Seems like we're up against the process. We all agree we need it, but how we get there seems to be an issue.
Yeah. Once we get the information, I will answer, but at the end of the day, I'm going to get to a decision and that's going to have to work for the residents. Whether it's legally prudent and the best, it may not fit perfectly in her prescription, because at the end of the day, I think that we have to do something. So, okay. Any other questions? All right, let's move on. We do have to make a motion.
Ben, we had a
extend that.
motion and a second.
We need
Did
to-
we had,
We need to amend that to bring it back.
or just
just-
let the motion die?
If you let the motion die, I think what you'd be moving to do is table this.
Okay. All right, as long as that's it.
So we're going to move on to item 9B. This is the Police Department Amendment to the City Ordinance, Chapter 10. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing.
I'm sorry, I probably wasn't being clear. If you've let that motion die and that's recognized by the chair, I think you need a motion to table the ordinance.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, so can we have a motion to table this item?
So moved.
Well, right now, Mayor, you've got a motion on the floor, so the person who made the motion and the person who seconded would have to withdraw the motion.
All right.
Yeah.
Commissioner May was the motion, and Commissioner Reed was the second.
Okay, so
right.
that's withdrawn, and now you need a motion to table.
Motion to table it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Do we have to have public input to table something?
No.
I didn't think so. Okay. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those in opposition, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. All right.
I'm sorry. So we're going to move on to 9B, which is the Police Department Amendment to the City Ordinance Chapter 10. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending Section 10-2 of Chapter 10 of the City Code of Ordinances, creating Section 1010 and 1011, clarifying evidentiary requirements related to alcohol beverages and enhancing existing restrictions on off-premises consumption of alcoholic beverages, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Got a motion, Commissioner Paris, second from Commissioner Reed.
I have no speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor.
All right. All those, do we have any questions or comments? All right. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, going to move on to item 9C. It's a Growth Management Planning Department. Add auto sales and rentals to RDM 5 LDC text amendment. This is an ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending the Land Development Code to an ordinance amending the Land Development Code Table 5.2.A.3 and Section 5.2.B.19 to add sales or rental of light vehicles as a permitted use in limited areas of the RDM 5 zoning district, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
We got a motion from Commissioner Strickland and second from Commissioner May.
And I have no speakers on this item, Mr. Mayor.
All right. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0, sorry.
Okay. Moving on to item 9D, it's Growth Management Planning Department to add self-storage or mini warehouse facility uses in BR2 zoning district. This is an LDC text amendment. Ordinance on second reading, public hearing. An ordinance amending the Land Development Code, Table 5.2.3, 5.2.A.2, and Section 5.2.B.23 to add the self-storage or mini warehouse facility use as a permitted principal use in Business Retail 2 zoning district, subject to use specific standards, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing an effective date.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
And I do have Megan Smith here for any questions about this particular Land Development Code.
Okay. All right, yes, do we have any questions for Ms. Smith? All right, no
And I'm sorry,
questions?
who was the second on that? It was Paris was the motion and May? Okay,
yeah,
thank
May.
you.
All right, all those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. We're going to move on to item number 10, which is our introduction of ordinances. Item 10A is the redevelopment neighborhood services essential housing linkage fees. This is an introduction of an ordinance on first reading. An ordinance establishing an affordable housing linkage fee for the purpose of increasing the supply of affordable housing in the city, adopting findings of the Workforce Housing Linkage Fee Nexus Study prepared by Strategic Planning Group, Inc., establishing process for providing development incentives to offset the cost of linkage fees, where required by Florida Statute Section 166.0415. Repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing when this ordinance shall take effect. Are there any questions or comments from the commission on this item? Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Commission, Ken Thomas, Director of Redevelopment. As you consider the first reading of the this ordinance and the second reading coming thereafter, we have partnered with the Florida Housing Coalition to help us with adoption of the trust fund, as well as providing assistance with the implementation of the linkage fee if adopted by this board. And so we have the executive director here tonight from the Florida Housing Coalition to give us just a brief presentation.
Oh, great.
Mr. Nesbitt.
Good evening. And I'll be very, very brief, just to kind of put this into context as to work that we've been doing with the team. I want to thank Ken and Yolanda and the whole team. They've been a pleasure to work with. So we were contracted to work with the team on the whole trust fund process. And so this part is, I know you've already established it, the trust fund ordinance, and now this is the linkage fee to put some funding into that. And so I'll just skip all of that. So the first part of our engagement was to provide a memo to the staff on implementation of the linkage fee, commitment of local revenue. So basically looking at the different funding sources to fund this trust fund. And so this is what that memo covers. And so we covered all the different sources. And I know you all are here tonight to talk about the linkage fee. And so just kind of putting that in context, it really is important that you're looking at this linkage fee because what it does, according to the memo, is provide that level of predictability in the recurring revenue that goes into the trust fund. And so that's really what this is all about. And so in that memo, if you've seen it, we looked at a lot of municipalities here in the state of Florida that have done similar things, as well as the other parts of the country, to give you a comparison so that, first of all, you're not alone in doing this and that other folks have done it. So you can compare kind of what they've done to what you're planning to do. And so in addition to the linkage fee, we do talk about general revenue, proceeds from city-owned sales of city-owned property, in lieu payments from a density bonus program, CRA funds. And so there are lots of different ways that you can fund the trust fund. The first one you're looking at here is the linkage fee, which we think does provide a good foundation for that trust fund. So in addition to the linkage fee, we did want you to think about, some other things. I know you're talking about the linkage fee, which is very good. We know that, commercial development does provide that link or that need for additional affordable housing based upon the types of jobs that it does produce. But in addition to that, don't want you to forget that, you can supplement that linkage fee as well with sources from general revenue. If you know about our SHIP funds, for example, our state housing trust fund, it is tied to a dedicated revenue source, and that does go up and down, and it's kind of tied to the market. So, when the market is high, when prices are high, we have more collections, we can put more money into housing, and the same can happen with your linkage fee. As your development cycles go up and down, those collections go down, but we know that the need for housing is still there. And so, to think about ways to also supplement that linkage fee as well. So all of those things are covered in the memo. Two of those things are general revenue. And here are some examples of some other folks that have done that. Hillsborough County, Fort Myers, and they all kind of look at different ways to do that. You may decide to put a certain amount of that every year to supplement the linkage fee, or you may decide to do that on a case-by-case basis. But that's still an option that's available. And the sale of city-owned property, whether you surplus it or not, you can utilize those proceeds for going into the trust fund. And these are some other examples: Fort Myers, Miramar, Lee County, that have done that. So just wanted to share those and keep those things on your mind as you're also considering the linkage fee. And we're prepared to continue to work with staff as you move forward to work through some of these questions in terms of eligible uses, whether you want to use it for gap financing, purchase assistance, rental assistance. The good thing about a linkage fee is it's not constricted as some of the other sources that typically go to fund affordable housing. You can utilize it however you see fit to meet particular needs, particularly those that may not be met by other funding sources. And so this is a great opportunity, looking at the households that you're going to serve, what types of developments you might want to serve with it, what are the caps on subsidy, what are the affordability inks. We definitely promote permanent affordability. Anytime you're utilizing public funds, you want to have that in place. Looks like we lost the screen there. Okay, and you have it in front of me. So, all those sources, I think the big thing is that you want to, and I think you've done well by not putting all of these things in your ordinance, but giving yourselves the opportunity to create a plan that you can operate either from a yearly basis or every other year, So you can really kind of look at what's happening in your market and really make a decision as to how you want to utilize those funds. And so, those are kind of the next steps. So we would continue to work with staff after you decide on the linkage fee or other funding sources to go in that trust fund as to how you would utilize those to develop that plan and come back to you. So I just really was here to make some really brief comments to kind of put this in context as to where we are in the process. And after you do the final vote in March, however you choose to move forward with funding the trust fund, we're prepared to continue to work with staff to make sure that whatever those funds that you choose to use are going to make sure that they go towards the use that you so choose as a commission to best benefit your citizens here in Daytona Beach. So I have any questions about the overall context of the process and can answer other questions as well.
No, that's great information.
All right.
That's
Thank you.
really good. Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Ferris has a question. Who do you have the question for?
This gentleman.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious. So the next step is figuring out how we're going to put money aside and I guess what kind of programs we want to work towards. What kind of data do you use to figure out what we need for our community?
So you are a entitlement community, so you do get funding from the federal. So you do a consolidated plan that has needs assessment as part of that. So there's that data. We can also look at the Schimberg Center for Housing Studies. So there are lots of different sources that we can look at to determine, what is the need. And then you want to compare that to what other funding sources meet other needs. For example, SHIP can only be used for homeowners, primarily for home ownership. So you might want to tackle rental. You might want to tackle a rental at a certain income level that's not being reached by other programs. So, those are the kind of things you would use those data sources to make those decisions.
So would you provide that information to us or would we go to our redevelopment department to get that?
We would work with Ken and the staff to give you all that information and give that report. However, if you want us to give that report or if you want staff to.
Thank you.
I do have a question too. Sorry. My question is, so she asked you where you get your data from. So are you actually getting data from the county? And because I know the county just recently did a study this year and they were 1,800 in the green for the county. So, and then I know about the Sadowski, the state Sadowski funds. And then are you aware that the Transform 386 is getting ready to allocate $150 million or more to HUD for more low-income housing?
Yeah, so about those studies. So yeah, the Schimberg Center, for example, does that rental market, rental market every year. And so yes, I would say that the qualifying thing with that is a Metro MSA wide study and not necessarily specifically for your city. So you would definitely want to.
What's not? I'm sorry.
So the rental market study is based on the metro area. So it's going to include the Schimberg Center.
Okay.
That gives
I wasn't actually talking about. The county actually did a study as well.
So again,
would
that's
you check with them and
you would check with them.
Okay.
But I just want to qualify all of those things. You have to look at the geography that it covers.
Correct.
So, a countywide study is looking at the county and not necessarily what's the needs within Daytona Beach.
Okay.
So you have to look at
I
Daytona Beach.
understand what you're saying, but I do want you to look just at Daytona Beach, what we have
Absolutely.
and everything. But I want to look at the picture as a whole as well because of the Transform 386, the money is getting ready to come in as well. I mean, you did a great presentation, and I probably still have more questions, so I hope you'll be back when.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and email as well. So.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
The public hearing and final action is set for March 5th. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 11, which is our administrative items. Item 11A was pulled from the agenda this evening, so we're going to move on to 11B. Sure, I have all my speakers here. Okay. 11B is a Public Works Kept Companies, Inc., doing business as Crystal Clean, work authorization number 66. This is a resolution approving a work authorization number 66 under the city's painting services agreement with Kept Companies, Inc. for exterior painting of the Halifax Harbor Plaza building at 125 Basin Street in the amount of $116,538.96 and providing an effective date.
We have a motion from Commissioner Reed, and we'll take the second from Commissioner Henry. Do we have any questions or comments?
And I have no speakers, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All those in favor, let it be.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you have a speaker? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have I don't know if it's a question or a request. So since we're painting the Halifax Harbor Plaza building, if we can somehow incorporate like our new branding and colors and everything. I know that the city manager said he received the colors, but I don't know if that's something that we want to move through the city, doing something like that.
Well,
I think the basic colors are the grayish and black, but I think she's wanting blue and that for the marina building.
I said incorporate like our branding and colors. It doesn't have to be yellow and blue.
But those are our branding colors: the blue, yellow, and red.
Does it have to be obtuse? Do we have to have tons and tons? It's maybe Commissioner Paris means a little bit of the colors, just to tie it together. Does it have to be the whole thing?
Just to give us an identity, tie it all together with the city.
Well,
Just a suggestion.
I don't like to get into decorations. I don't like to get into that. So I'm not gonna say, you guys have to figure that out, what y'all want. I don't talk about decorations. Do you have an opinion on decorations? I have no. I don't.
I have an opinion.
Okay.
About tranquil colors, the blues, the aquas and the grays and calming colors. I think that red is bold and it's
Boisterous.
not calm, and I'm thinking of the marina as a nice fancy building that people would be able to use for upscale events, right? Is that, would you get married in a red building? I mean, if the building was red, would you want to have a reception there? I would want to have a reception and I get what you're saying with the branding. But I wouldn't want to be by the river in a bright red fire engine building. Talking about getting married and taking pictures and have that that's just me personally.
Okay. Well, I understand that, and I think that the sentiment is not in favor of red, but I do think that they can put that on the wayfinding sign that gets us to the building.
I think, and I'm not sure if they talked with some of the marina users and individuals, but I'll make sure to find out how did they come up with the color scheme.
Thank you.
Okay. That didn't. I'm laughing because I must digress for a quick moment. In the place where I live, and I have a closet, and I have a desk in a spacious home, but I have a closet and a desk. There was recently a whole makeover, and the person that I live with and daily sent me pictures and daily sent me photos of this, that, and the other, and the colors of the walls, and I just pretended. So sometimes it's very hard to fake it. So
Curious, the therapist in me comes out. So you're actually admitting that you pretended to paying attention.
I said I pretended. I didn't say to pay attention. I paid attention.
You paid attention.
I pretended
When
to
To show interest.
No.
Oh,
That's not what I
okay, sorry.
said.
I thought I heard something
and
else.
you-
My mistake.
and you
I
have
didn't
to-
use the word, I just pretended.
And you have to go home to that person? The FBI couldn't have got that information out of me.
Oh, it's okay. She knows. I've already told her after it's over, you admit it. Okay. All right, let's move on. I digress, yes. We have a motion and a second. But not getting married in a red building did resonate with me. We have a motion and a second. All those who are in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. We're going to move on to item 11C, which is the Public Works Traffic Control Device Work Authorization Number 6. This is a resolution approving work authorization number 6 under Piggyback Services Agreement with Traffic Control Devices LLC for mast arm painting of 8 signalized city intersections in the amount of $141,082.82 and providing an effective date.
So moved.
Take a motion from Commissioner Henry, or Reed, and second from Commissioner Henry.
And I do have a speaker, Mr. Mayor,
Okay.
Mr. John Nicholson.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. Monica, the pictures you showed earlier, were any of those on the beach side?
Yeah.
They were all on the beach side.
Would you consider passing something that would not include the beach side and fix up Beach Street and MNB and the mainland and exclude the beach side?
Yeah, he's just
I'm making a point.
making a point.
The whole idea of your presentation was there's a need to fix up and clean up the beach side, was it not? You are. Okay? 11C is specifically for mainland. It does not include beachside. So these arms, there's 7 of them. They're on MMB, they're on Charles Street or whatever. The 7 that I read do not include the ones that I see every day that are terrible. Seabreeze and A1A, Oak Ridge and A1A, Main Street and A1A. They're faded. They have decals. They're missing parts. This is where our tourists are. If we're going to do this, if we're piggybacking on another in order to get a good deal, do you have them? Because out in the lobby, when I read it, there were none. The ones that I wanted were not listed. Are they going to be there? Okay. Why is it not then? This is the second time that I've read, and when an item says 7. Okay. Well, okay. Well, I went. I specifically went. All right, and I counted 7. All right. It doesn't say Oak Ridge. It doesn't say Main Street. It doesn't say Seabreeze because it listed the locations and the lobby. You have a copy of it that we're supposed to look at before we speak. And I read it. So that's why I'm asking. Then that brings up another point. Why what you have is different from what the public has. Okay? Because we need it. We have thousands. I know we've heard it in the past that there's no more tourism on Beachside. That's false. There's 10 million tourists that run around Beachside, and we have to deal with it. So, thank you very much.
I was going to say, just John, if you would get with David Waller, so he can show you how it's determined which ones are fixed up first in the priority list. It will help you. But some of these are on the mainland and also connect to the beachside area. But David Waller will be able to show you how they're selected in the process that each goes, because I can understand that you have been seeing some, but there is a process for getting those done.
That was my only speaker, Mr. Mayor.
Meeting outside says 7.
All right, we'll start with,
She has a question, and then we have to vote on this item.
I thought I did see Oak Ridge, but it's not on here, but they have ISB and Beach Street. So when I saw this, I looked to see if it was on Peninsula and Silver Beach, if it needed it, because I would have added it. And then I realized that one's silver. So all of these arms are painted black and they need repainting. So I don't know if moving forward, we could just get silver ones that don't need repainting and they could stay looking nice. I don't know what the process is. I know you don't design, but I'm very visual, so, and I think it would save us money. That's it. Thank you.
okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be noted by saying aye.
Aye.
Those who are opposed, same sign. Motion carries 7-0. All right, let's move on to commission commentary.
And I believe we start with Commissioner May tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Have a nice evening, everybody.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Cantu?
Yeah, I'll make this really short. I want to see what the commission feels about this. Something I've been running into, living in a gated community, about hiring detail officers for extra security. And then we just had that new coffee shop open over there off Bevel Road in Clyde Morris. And I found it kind of disturbing. We had two Daytona Beach PD officers working that. And then we had 2 Florida Highway Patrol officers working that all day long because there was a lot of traffic. But looking this up and asking questions, so the Daytona Beach PD are making $45 an hour for detail, and actually 5 of it goes to the city, so 40. We had 2 Florida Highway Patrol on detail making $85. They were doing exactly the same job. And I'm like, this is crazy. And we did pass, if you remember, the Seabreeze 80, I think it was 80, 85 for detail. And then I know they make, during the entertainment district, I believe they make 60, 65, but remember, all $5 always goes to the city. And during race week, we have officers helping, doing detail, and this is our city. And the sheriff's department, I believe, makes around $65. Don't quote me completely, but around $65. And I'm looking at some of this. I kind of was trying to look at this, and I'm just going to give a few examples. What is it? Daytona Beach Shores, I think, is like 53. We had some of these cities up to 55, 65, 75 is South Daytona for detail. I think we need to raise our detail because we are Daytona Beach. And all these other cities are paying more, and it's not coming out of our pocket at all by paying them more for detail, making a policy. I don't know how you guys feel, but our officers doing detail should not be making less than all these other officers around Volusia County. On Seabreeze, and it's not coming out of our pocket for detail. Yeah, it doesn't come out of our pocket. Detail is when, like, my neighborhood requests detail. Do you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And actually, supposedly they make $45, but 5 of that actually goes to the city. And then they get the other 40. So this is not coming out of our pocket. I believe that we should maybe raise that to at least 65 because there's one city that's paying, Port Orange. Port Orange is paying more than us too. They look like they're up to what, almost $70?
Why do they pay them so much more than they make hourly on their regular job, though?
Because this is detail, and a lot of officers don't want to work detail because you see what goes on out there now for officers. they'll go into a business and you got all the, I mean, especially in those bars and stuff, everybody has their cell phones out. You know how, I mean, but we have other cities paying more for detail than we actually are. And we're the second largest city.
So let me understand. Detail
ma'am.
is a special.
Correct.
Okay. And we determine how much they get for a special detail.
Correct.
And so you're asking, could we raise a special detail price?
Correct.
So that also means if they do special detail for us, their price is raised.
I don't know.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I don't
So
know
like the
how much
Santa run?
how much special detail they do for us that we pay.
How much?
Because
I would want to know that how much special detail our officers, because we have so many
They don't
events.
have that in those other places.
We have so many events. Is the chief here?
Chief,
Paging chief. Paging chief. Front and center.
He was back there.
sorry, putting you on the spot.
Front and center. Front and center.
So the TV in the back was a little low, so I missed the last little tail.
So what I brought forward, I was actually, you know, since Pelican Bay is going on, and then we had the new coffee shop.
Right.
Okay. I am finding out, and then it kind of aggravated me because I have 2 Florida Highway Patrol there all day, making $85 for detail. 2 of our Daytona Beach PD making $45, actually $40 because the city gets 5. And I'm like, they're doing exactly the same thing. And no wonder our police do not want to work detail, because I'm looking at every city in Volusia County and they're paying more
Right.
than we are actually giving ours. And it's not costing us a dime to give them more. And he was saying something about officers working detail. Officers do not want to work detail when they're making that amount of money and what involves sometimes working detail. So they were discussing about if we raise detail, when you guys do our events, are we going to be paying more
Will you guys be paying more?
to you?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
No. The vendor is the one that pays
But
the city. Like you stated, the $45, the officers get 40, the city gets 5.
right, but they're
So if
talking.
it goes up, I believe the city would get a little bit more, as well as the officer would get more, depending on what is decided as far as the increase.
But the question they have is, we have a lot of events, and you guys have to work our events.
Right.
Now, will we have to pay that price if we raised it? That's what they were asking.
That's my question.
Yes.
So
So if
Yeah.
we raise it to 65.75, we would pay that 65.75 as well.
That's what.
Right, but a lot of the city events, for example, we just finished the Daytona 500 and Race Week. A lot of that was overtime, so that's different than detail.
Right,
And
that's
different
what I thought.
officers have
Right.
different
Okay.
overtime rates depending on their tenure.
Okay, tell me that again.
So you have a detail rate which is set. The
Okay.
set detail rate is $45 an hour. But a lot of times when we're working special events, I'm mandating people to work. And when I mandate them to work, we're paying overtime, which is totally different. And it varies depending on years of service. So each officer's overtime rate is a little bit different. The longer they've been here, the more we're paying them in overtime. That's different than detail.
But I think.
So like Bike Week, for example, we're getting ready to roll into Bike Week. There will be specific bars and other establishments throughout the city that will hire a detail. If the detail goes filled, those officers will make the 45 an hour. But a lot of them don't go filled because they're mandated to work. Because I need them on Main Street, I need them on Seabreeze, and I'm paying them overtime because a lot of them are getting their days off canceled, and I'm paying them the overtime just to make sure I have enough resources out there. So that's separate than detail pay.
But Chief, I think you're still misunderstanding what they're asking. Let's
He
say.
answered it.
Oh, you did? You're fine? Oh.
Okay, then I have a question. So I've got to advocate for events on Beach Street, right? And Beach Street, we have the DDA, and the DDA supports events. right, in our CRA. So we have an independent person who comes in and has events, and he has to have a detail.
Right.
When he has food truck night, we have events happening once a month, twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. So does that mean that, I believe it would mean that our rate would also go up with regard to that, the detail rate. So it's already.
Yes, if the city's
Sure.
paying the detail
Sure.
rate, then the rate will go up.
And so I
Yeah.
would have to say that as of right now, according to that particular vendor, it's already a bit of a hardship at times, just with all the expenses that are incurred between barricades and setting up, which is not your responsibility, but taking it up a little, taking it up too much. I say too much, right? Is going to affect some of the other events as well, and kind of what goes on. So it's not just, yes, DDA, when we have it downtown, we have a little meetings, but we have a lot of events that happen downtown, and they have a detail for almost every single one. So that would be, and it's not a huge budget that we have for that, and we're not spending a lot, but a lot of it would be going to more city types of things, which I just want to share that. So before you make a decision on that, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's going to have an impact on some other events as well.
Commissioner May, I totally agree what you're saying with that too, the DAV. I just have, my feeling is all these cities surrounding us pay a lot more. I have a feeling that we have a hard time filling these positions. That's why we had the Sheriff's Department, we have the Florida Highway Patrol coming here, because our officers don't want to work these details because they're not getting paid. Am I correct, Chief?
So that specifically pertains to a lot of the nightclubs. I have a hard time filling the Razzles detail and some of the other ones on Seabreeze for that reason, because it's, in their opinion, not worth
But for the most
the
part,
aggravation.
it sounds to me like for the most part, they're doing mandated overtime anyway for a lot of the events.
For the big
Some
events,
big-
I have
for
to
the big
mandate,
events,
yes.
apart
There's
from
still details out there for those that don't get mandated, and they will work those details. But for the big events that we're discussing, if it's a bike week, if it's races, if it's Jeep Beach, a lot of these events, we have several triathlons and marathons we run throughout the year, and all of that is overtime.
And then some of our part-timers are making $17 an hour. They can go to, Buc-ee's and make more, but they're making $17 an hour. And I think it would help him recruit more officers if we had the same amount, I'm paying the same amount for detail that all these other cities are paying. I mean, Port Orange pays more, the Shores. Actually, I think even Little Holly Hill pays a little bit more than us. It's totally nuts.
Chief,
I mean,
who pays the most in the area? What city?
I don't
Florida,
know. I don't have
what
that.
city? Daytona, South Daytona.
I don't think people are becoming police officers because of how much they're going to get paid for detail.
Oh.
That's just something extra.
Do what now?
Isn't that extra detail? They're coming to work as a police officer. Detail is extra duty.
Correct.
I don't think people are becoming police officers so they can get detail work. They're
Oh,
coming to
believe
do-
me, I can tell you, I have a son who's a sergeant. Believe me, all officers work overtime because they need to make a check.
Overtime, and that's
right.
different.
But if they can't, a lot of officers, because you can only get so much overtime, they will work details. Am I am I right? Because
Right.
they need the paycheck.
So I will say this. This has already been a topic of discussion. And I believe in my conversations with Human Resources, this was something that they were going to try to adjust later on when we go forward with contract negotiations, because I've already heard this as a topic that they were discussing raising the detail pay once they move forward with contract negotiations this summer. But I'm pretty sure the officers would appreciate if y'all decided to do it now and increase the detail rate if that's on the table. Because Commissioner Cantu is correct that a lot of the cities around us are now paying more as far as their detail.
Well, we have to also consider that this detail price will also go on to citizens when they need detail to rent our facilities. It's going to cost them more money as well.
And my next question is, when we're having our special events, because we have so many special events, those cities are not having the same amount of special events, so they're not getting, still not getting as much in comparison to what our guys are getting in overtime, if that makes sense.
But what happens is when we're having our events, so well, not us having, when we're having things happening here, just like I said, these businesses are paying for the special detail. They paid for 2 Florida Highway Patrol to come out here and paid $85 a piece, and then Daytona Beach PD, 2 of them sitting there for $45, actually $40. So these businesses are paying. They're just going around our Daytona Beach police officers because they don't want to do the detail for it. But it's pretty sad when you got, we're the city of Daytona Beach, when you got 2 officers that are Daytona Beach PD, then you got 2 other officers from another agency getting twice as much as our officers.
I understand that. What I'm saying is in comparison to.
But I'm not going to sit and fight. I think the union will probably. He just told me. I mean, you just said right. But I'm just saying. I'm not going to say here when I know you just said. Am I correct? The union is coming. That it's their argument in the first place.
Right. But we, to your point as well, to your point, we have had vendors that have asked if they could pay more to try to get the detail filled. And we can't because we're locked in at our rate.
Correct.
So if it gets filled, great. If it doesn't, we just have to, manage it as best we can with on-duty resources.
Right. And that's how I know with my neighborhood is, you guys can only come in so much, but I don't expect you guys to be there 24 hours. And I know a lot of my residents want you there,
right.
And you have tried to come in as much as you can. But as a HOA, we have hired detail, and I just don't believe, and a lot of those guys are not going to want to work in Pelican Bay for that amount of money.
They can also hire private detail. They don't have to hire police officers.
We already have private security in Pelican Bay on both gates, actually, and people that drive around.
Mm-hmm.
But they have no power to make any arrest or do anything.
911.
Detail does.
What were you going to say, Commissioner Reed? I'm sorry, Commissioner Henry, you were going to say something?
I was.
Oh, I'm listening.
Sorry.
I'm listening.
I was just reiterating my point that they don't work as much overtime as our police force works.
That's not true.
In overtime.
Go ahead.
Do the other cities work as much overtime as our guys
I
work?
don't think they could because they don't have the events that we have.
That's my point. That's my point is that they don't have the events to work as much overtime as what our men are working overtime. So I particularly.
This is the
believe
sheriff department?
It kind of averages out.
Do they?
The sheriff department do overtime?
They do, yes.
Yes, because they work.
No, I'm talking about police departments, not sheriff department. That's a little different.
But we do call in, like the Speedway, I think this past 500, they called in a lot of different of the police stations, didn't they? New Smyrna, I saw, Port Orange was there, Daytona Beach PD, Sheriff's Department, yeah.
Okay. I think we've I'm not in favor of moving forward tonight at all. So I'll let like you said, let HR and those guys work it out and see where they land. I do want them to be paid, but I don't want to add a tax to the resident, and I would rather, but I do want to keep our law enforcement, paid well from what their general salary is. So, okay, do we have anything else?
I just think since we're the largest city, we have generate a lot of money with our events and stuff. Those guys have to work overtime. Overtime is good, but if they can go out and make, say, whatever, $70, if that's what the South Daytona's paying, why not? If you're going to have to rent a cop, you're going to have some money to put on an event that says you need one. So if you can't afford a little more money for having somebody there for that event, then maybe you shouldn't be having an event.
Okay, I'm going to have to say that.
I agree.
I don't want to say that our residents shouldn't be able to have events because their pockets aren't as deep as other people's pockets.
Well, you just heard the chief.
So just I'm gonna try to be Ben Gross for a second and just just try to clarify something. So if we're talking bottom dollar, I spend a lot of money in overtime. Some of the overtime I'm paying is because the details aren't getting filled. So I'm going to have to bring somebody on overtime to be in that area. Like, for example, if I don't have anybody that's signing up to work those bars on Seabreeze, I'm bringing people in on overtime, and that's more money than the detail. So just to be clear, I'm spending more money on overtime because I'm bringing extra people in because the details a lot of times are going unfilled because their overtime rates are a lot more than the detail rate, just to be clear.
No,
So they get paid more in overtime than they get paid in detail?
Yes.
The city is
Okay.
paying that.
All right.
Okay.
So
All
that,
Yeah.
right.
We're gonna be here.
Correct. So it's actually
But-
coming out of our money.
It is coming out of our money, but they're not getting slighted in comparison to detail.
And he has to
Because
mandate.
they're
This issue,
making
Can't be solved.
overtime and it costing more. Now, I do understand what you're saying, and that's a good point to consider moving forward in how we transition and trying to get more money. However, what you're saying to me is either way, they're making more money in overtime than they are in detail.
Correct.
Okay.
And he has to mandate those to actually work overtime. And some of those officers might not want to actually do that. And with detail, we're not paying, and those officers might want to work.
I understand.
So,
I
okay.
understand both points, but that clarified a lot.
So can we come back with more information on this?
You can give me more information, but I'm not really going to personally be, I know where I'm kind of at right now.
So everybody,
I'm gonna let the staff from my perspective, but if you all wanna bring it back and then y'all vote on it. I also wanna let it go in that way. I'm not trying to move down this road.
so we'd rather pay our officers in Daytona Beach so much less than any other city.
But they're
Okay.
not making less. He's telling you they're doing mandated overtime and they're
Yeah,
making
but
more.
the city is actually our budget. That's coming out of our money.
And that's not what he said. He actually
No,
said.
it actually comes out of our money, our budget, correct?
That's not what he said. He said.
Yes.
The overtime does.
Yes.
But okay.
What he said was, let's let HR
Okay.
deal with it. He
Yeah.
didn't say, no, we don't want to do that. He
Well,
said, let's,
even if HR is dealing with it, it's still coming back to us.
right.
That's the
But-
point.
But let it start where it's supposed to start.
Yeah. Okay, can we move on?
I'd be in favor
Yes.
of seeing it come back. I said I'd be in
You would?
favor and seeing it come back.
No, I mean sooner than later.
Okay, do you have 4 people who want him to bring it back right now? Because I don't want to bum rush anything.
I'm a yes.
I got 1 yes.
Yes.
2
Yes.
yeses. Want to have it come back right now? Right now?
Yes.
Right now.
No.
I'm a no. Okay, so it's 4-3 no. So keep it moving. All right. What's your, you have another question? Or we on, where we on? Commissioner Cantu.
Oh.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to remind you all that the Melanin Too Rich is coming on Saturday at the Daisy Stocking Park. We're going to have lots of wonderful things for the community. There are lots of events going on that particular day, but we hope that you will find a little bit of time to come in and stop and see some of the wonderful things that we're going to be doing. And the next thing that I want to talk about is Clyde Morris Landing, which is the crappiest apartment complex in the city of Daytona Beach right now. I know.
It is.
I just want to say that the way that they're treating their residents, and Clyde Morris Landing is one of the places that came, and I personally met with Clyde Morris Landing regarding they were doing affordable housing units, and they got TIF dollars. If I remember, they got TIF dollars from the city of Daytona Beach for affordable housing. And I sat and I talked with the the lawyers, and I would like for staff to find that paperwork for the lawyer, because and all of the people that came before me and said how that they were going to treat the residents and how they weren't going to be turning the property over to these different property managers, and now they've turned it over to property managers, and I'm getting literally 10 calls a week regarding Clyde Morris Landing and how they're treating the senior citizens. I'm getting calls from senior citizens. I'm getting calls from the other people as far as safety, as far as mold and mildew, and one cry is something, 2 cries is something. You get 5 cries, you're like, okay, maybe, but you start getting 5, 10 calls a week and emails a week, then there's an issue. And Clyde Morris Landing got a lot of money from the city of Daytona Beach to provide a high quality service. And I would like for staff to let me know who owns that and who also that attorney that I sat down and talked to, because the next time I sit down and talk to him, if he wants to come before me and think I'm going to support something and do business, he's going to have to really, he's a good guy, but it's still, you're a good guy, but some stuff fall on you too. We all good people, but sometimes stuff fall on us. It come back to us. My principal is a great principal, but when she get a D or a C, or it comes back on her. So, so yeah, and how they're treating the residents out there, it's just, I mean, not too long ago they had the water turned off on the residents. For how long was it off? Huh? You don't remember?
I do.
Tell me where this is.
It was
Yes, it
actually.
is. You called me.
It was actually.
And LPGA.
It was a week.
Okay, this was the.
It was a week.
This was the building that they had already
It was
built.
a week.
It was a week.
And they
Yes.
came back and
I have
asked us for
emails,
those
too.
TIF funds after they had built. Am I right about
No,
it? That's
they
not the
asked
one?
before.
They asked before?
This was before.
And they're a part of, they're tax exempt with the Live Local Act as well, correct?
I
believe
don't know
they're-
the answer
no,
to that question,
they are on the
Commissioner,
list.
But I do know that we had an agreement that was then amended that gives them a grant based on the amount of taxes they pay if they rent to affordable housing, and there's some performance standards in there. I don't know what those are off.
I
they
do have it. I do have the list. They are tax exempt under Live Local Act as well.
I don't know about that, but they shut the water off on those people for days. They had the water off on those people for days, and people were calling around trying to get water turned back on. And I'm not going to support people who come into the community and want to put, even if it's going to be affordable housing, because affordable housing does not have to be, it does not mean that people can be just treated any kind of way. That's not what affordable housing is in my book. And it does not mean turn it over to some companies to run it, and so what, let the cards fall where they may. And I have elderly people calling me because they have feces in the elevators and stuff like that. And I feel like even as a community, as a city, I know it's a private property, but some kind of code or code enforcement, something has to be done to where those people aren't living just like they're in a third world housing complex. We shouldn't treat people that way, and you shouldn't be using the city of Daytona Beach tax dollars to and then I think they even had a second. It was one building they built. It was part A, and then they came back and did a part B. Correct. If I remember correctly, they did a part B, and they got money. They got more money for the part B.
Is that the one where I'm thinking this is the place that they didn't have it built yet.
No, it is not. It's not. Because they had to get the money before they could get it, before they built it. And I remember this. And so I know you're saying that the guy is a good person and he didn't have anything to do, but he needs to just be very careful who he, attaches his name to. Everybody should be careful of who they attach their name to. And I'm sure he probably wouldn't want this, because he is a nice guy, and he wouldn't want to know that that's how they're doing and treating the relatives. But I'm calling them out. I'm letting them know, and I'm letting them know that I'm on top of them, because you're just not going to treat the people in the city of Daytona, especially the people in Zone 5, that way, because you all know I'm Mother Ducker Zone 5. And you're just not going to treat them any kind of way like that. And these people are suffering, and they're sending me these pictures and videos of mold everywhere, and that's no way to live.
Are there any repercussions here from the city? Can we do anything? Have they not fulfilled obligations?
So first, I don't know if the performance standards in the agreement are triggered by this, and then there's which we'll research. And then there's the second issue that those performance standards were leverage that would allow us to either claw back or not give them a grant. The amount of the grant was contingent on them making tax payments. If, as Commissioner Cantu said, they're now exempt from tax payments because of the Live Local Act, that agreement may not be relevant anymore. So we've got a lot to research.
And
I do have it, and I'll send to you. They are exempt. There was like a couple properties. I have all the properties from all over, from that Live Local Act, and it was 2 of our properties, and they were one of them.
We need to research it. We'll work with staff on that.
And the other thing also that I would like, you made me lose my train of thought. The other thing that I would like to research is whether or not we had an agreement that they wouldn't raise rent a certain amount, because the rent is skyrocketing. So, no, it was something in those affordable units. We had something in those affordable units. I can't remember exactly, for them to get the money, that for a certain amount of years, that they wouldn't go above a certain amount with raising the rent. I want to check all of that out. I just want y'all on top of it.
We'll look at that, Commissioner.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And those are my comments for tonight. Have a wonderful week.
So my question is, these appalling conditions, is this across the board or just in the affordable housing section?
No, across the board.
Oh, yeah, we got to do something.
I don't even know if they have any mixed. I think it's all affordable. I don't think there's any. Originally, the design was affordable, senior, and then market rate. I think the last component that came back to make it all affordable. And this was a major has been my experience with the residents. It's deplorable, and I would like for staff to monitor what has transpired, as she suggested, and check to see if there are code infractions that we can hold them accountable for. And if they have not upheld their end of the deal, we need to do all that we can to ensure that they are moving forward. It's just not been a good deal. Sorry, Commissioner.
Oh, that's okay, because I'm right there with you. No one should live like that. And I think we should take note of this experience with this particular company for anybody else that comes our way, not in Daytona. Not in Daytona. The whole purpose of affordable housing is to give these folks who are already living in conditions that are deplorable an opportunity to have a quality of life. And we don't want to be responsible for putting them in a situation that's just as bad as what they came from. So yeah. I just want to tell you about 2 things. Y'all can't say nothing's not happening in Daytona. There's so much going on this weekend, it doesn't make sense. But the Fresh Book Festival starts tomorrow. How long I've been in office? It's our 13th year. It's going to be at the Cherry Center. We've got a lot of stuff going on. Check out online what all is happening. And then Saturday night is our second Midtown concert. And it's going to be Blue Moon. I've never heard them, but they look good. So check them out. Come and take advantage of what we're preparing and offering for our citizenry. That concludes my comments.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I just had 2 questions. One was on the environmental committee. I know I kind of spoke to you about it, but I don't remember.
Staff is preparing the information to bring back to you all for approval. Dennis and Jim Maury and Andy Holmes. Sorry, Dennis.
Okay. And the other question was on redistricting, if we have any updates on timeframes.
We are currently working on putting together an agreement that we will present to the commission either next commission meeting or the meeting thereafter for you to hire a consultant who will help us go through the redistricting process again.
Those are all my comments, and keep Daytona Beach clean. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Commission.
I only have one comment, and it's for our city attorney's office there. I want to give a big thanks and kudos to Attorney David Russell and Senior Paralegal Lisa Bennett for their excellent work and getting a ruling in our favor recently so that we didn't have to have a shade meeting today and didn't have to give anybody any money for a change. So thank you.
Good point. Good point. Well, the Mayor's Fitness Challenge is in full throttle and going very well. I'm continuing to grind. I did slip up on the sugar. It was planned, so on Valentine's Day, I kissed my wife and I had too much sugar. No, but I did have a piece of chocolate on that day. But we're still rolling, so I want to continue to encourage everyone who's participating in the challenge to stay engaged. And basketball season is coming to a conclusion. Next week will be the championship week, and Leisure Services has done a great job. Our young people are really having great attitudes and just good participation, a lot of wholesome, strong activity going on that I'm very proud of and proud to be a part of. Daytona Beach has a lot of great things going on in our city, and tonight we took a giant step towards something that we have all wanted for a long time, or a lot of us have wanted, and that's linkage fees. We continue to be a community that is one that is that aspires to be responsible and compassionate, and that's something that I'm honored to work with you all, a group that really favors compassionate leadership. And so at the end of the day, we know that nothing is getting cheaper. Grocery is not getting cheaper. Utilities are not getting cheaper, and housing is certainly not getting cheaper. But we continue to be a destination, as the manager refers to, of choice. People continue to want to be here, and I think we have to continue to make certain that we're trying to do things to make certain that people who are working in certain jobs are afforded an opportunity to live the abundant life, and to have the quality of life that we want people who are working. Not just police, not just teachers, but I'm talking people who are in the service industries as well. So I'm excited for us to finally get this to the next level. And I'm also excited for us to see what else we can do to make certain that we're doing something that's pronounced in a big way. That concludes my remarks, Mr. Manager.
No comments.
Sir?
Mayor and City Commissioners, I just wanted to add one comment, and this relates to what Commissioner Strickland was referring to. The case that we sent out news about our victory on today was a civil rights case, and one of the really tricky parts of those civil rights cases is you get an award of attorney's fees if there's any damages, and sometimes the attorney's fees are the really big cost. So I too share Commissioner Strickland's sentiments. I think Assistant City Attorney Russell and Ms. Barnett did a really bang-up job and put a lot of work into this, and it is a really good victory for the city.
It is.
Yeah.
And I would like to say thank you too. I think you did a great job.
Okay. All right, we will now hear from the citizens of Daytona Beach.
Our first speaker tonight is John Navarre, and on deck is Patty
Jesus.
Sanderdahl.
My children gonna be up all night.
Okay. And then we'll have to do a separate one for Greg. You can't come up together. Go ahead, sir.
Okay.
John Navarra, 168 Springwood Drive, Daytona Beach. When I was first running for the Florida legislature to represent Daytona Beach in 2021, 2022, one thing that I researched with county statistics was very disturbing, that zip code 32114 is the 20th poorest zip code out of almost 1,000 in the state of Florida. And I researched something that was really disturbing, that the infant mortality rate in 32114 is 50% higher than any other zip code in Daytona Beach. And that was really startling. I researched a lot about the poverty in the area, and that's been an interest of mine since I was 18 years old in 1982. And I decided in 1982 to run for the Florida legislature or the U.S. Congress to do something about poverty in our community. And so this summer, I'm going to research at the local level, the state level, maybe the federal level, what we can do to reduce the infant mortality rate in Daytona Beach, and also access to health care for residents in Daytona Beach, poor residents. And I also found out through the League of Women Voters, they had a weekend seminar about the situation with prenatal care. The one woman, obstetrician, that actually delivered one of my daughters called us a prenatal desert. And it's so startling that people who even have health care can't find a doctor to get prenatal care in Daytona Beach. And that's the situation we're living in. So I want to research that at these levels, and I'll give a report to my commissioner, if it's okay, Commissioner Paris, and she can share it with the board. And I'm going to try to figure out what best we can do for these residents in order for these children to be able to survive. I believe that from what I've noticed, that at the state level, this issue is not recognized. In Tallahassee, nothing is being done. There was a lot, being done for children not yet born yet, but for our struggling infants who are trying to reach their first birthday, we're not meeting our obligations as a community. So I'll see what can be done. I'll see what plans can be put in place at the local, federal, state level. I'll speak to medical experts, and I'll come back with a proposal. Thank you. I'll be able to do that in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, our next speaker is Patty. Is it Santa Padre? Okay, sorry.
Oh, did I want my glasses? Okay. So my name is Patty Santa Padre, and I live on Williams Ave, 215 Williams Ave, in Commissioner Strickland's district. Oh, he's not here. I am from Our Lady of Lourdes, and I'm a leader of the faith organization. I'm here because I'm passionate about the affordable housing. I want to thank Mayor Henry, Commissioner Strickland, and Commissioner Reed for coming to our Action Assembly last year. This year, we expect 1,000 Daytona Beach residents to attend again, and we would love to celebrate our progress on affordable housing with each of you. The assembly begins at 6:30. It's at Our Lady of Hope Catholic Church on Tuesday, March 25th. So that'd be great if you all could come, because as residents, you guys are our rock stars, and everything that I think we have something really great to celebrate here, and we'd all love to see you guys there. So please come. I'm also here again to remind you to push forward with the linkage fees. We're so excited that the linkage fees are on the agenda. We have been working with all of you since 2019, and we're so grateful that it's going to be discussed. But we are disappointed to see the low amounts that the city staffs are recommending. We know that other cities like Winter Park have smaller fees that the city staffs are recommending, but the Nexus study recommended, but they don't have the same types of problems that we have in Daytona Beach. Homelessness is such a huge problem here, Yes, I know. I serve the homeless. And we have a lot of elders that are being priced out of their rental apartments, and they have to come up with either the rent or clothes. So they come to us for clothes, they come to us for extra food, so they can have enough money for their rent, because their rent is just increasing and increasing. We're seeing faces that we've never seen before. You would never know that they were struggling. They just look like you and I. I have a daughter, and I know I've spoken about her here before, who got flooded out of South Daytona. She's a nursery school teacher, and now what she's paying, she owned a home, but now they can't get back into it yet. And what she's paying for rent with 3 children, thank God she has her dad and I to help her. I worry, what if she didn't have us? What if we weren't here to help her? So I'm really excited about the affordable housing, but I do think that we need to talk more about the linkage fee. Okay. Well, I basically wanted to let you guys know that we're hoping that you guys take the bold actions on affordable housing, as well as using larger linkage fees as recommended by the Florida Housing Coalition in the next study. And thank you all for your leadership. We really do appreciate you guys, and we are praying for you all.
Thank you.
Greg, were you going to speak? Greg, were you going to speak? No. Okay. Our next speaker is Mary, is it Cernati? And on deck is John Nicholson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Mary Cernati. I live in Monica Paris district, and I am a very active member of faith and a very proud member of the Our Lady of Lourdes Parish. So I also am a property manager locally. So I just want you to know that I feel this every day. I want to know that we are going to continue to fund or find reasons to fund and use the linkage fees, because we've already gone down that path. It's already there for us, and it's something that we need to act on quickly. I can tell you every day when I have to deal with people that can't afford the homes that I have to offer, and I'm working with the housing authorities, I'm working with the Homeless Coalition. I have now housed quite a few people through the Changing Homelessness program for the homeless veterans. I am also working with the Homeless Coalition, and I also work with all of the different housing authorities in the area. So I can tell you that it's becoming a lot more difficult because incomes aren't going up as quickly as rents or expenses. We as property managers, and even the owners that I represent, are having a hard time making their bills as well. Water's not getting cheaper. Sewer on beachside's not getting cheaper. So of course, we also have to pass some of those expenses on, or we wouldn't be able to maintain as well. Then we add the insurance issue for many of the properties that have to pay those huge deductibles. And then all we need is a couple storms to be able to push us back even further. So that's a real situation. I think one of the most important that I wanted to speak with tonight is the fact that, number one, the linkage fees are important. I implore you to please represent your communities by showing up for our Action Assembly. We need your voices and we need your leadership to be able to push this next so that we can attack some of these issues that are going on currently in the affordable housing industry. I've been in this industry for 12 years, and I do have a lot of experience with it, and I can offer some help in that. So Faith recently met with the Florida Housing Coalition, and they assured that the commercial linkage fees of $5 to $7 per square foot is the best possible way to solve our affordable housing problem. If we don't have residential linkage fees, we need to have sizable commercial fees. So we do see all the commercial buildings that are going up. We do know that there's going to be income generated from those places that are going to be, they're building them for a reason. I'm sure that it's not just to be able to build a structure. They're planning on making money. We need to be able to put some of that money back into our communities and be able to house the people. And some of the recent laws with homelessness, as far as I'm concerned, are also helping us to make the gap bigger for homelessness. And I think that we need the answers And I thank you for your time. I'm sorry I've run out of time, but I certainly appreciate it. Please, I do ask you to come. Thank you.
Our next speaker is John Nicholson, and on deck is William Biddorf.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. After I spoke the last time, I walked right out into the lobby to read that document again. It does say 7, and they're listed. ISB in White Street, Seneca, Nova, Adams, Lincoln, and Ridgewood. Do any of those sound like they're on the mainland? Now this goes through, because I've gone through this in the past. When Beachside gets ignored. There was a scare for creosote. They were afraid it was going to cause cancer in children. So they removed it from all the playgrounds except Beachside. The playgrounds were rusting. They were afraid the kids were going to get tetanus from scratching themselves. They removed 3 playgrounds for the Beachside, the only 3 we have. That was 20 years ago, and the Hilton playground is still waiting for it to be replaced. Matthew, 8, 10 years ago? Monica showed you pictures of them. 10 years without lighting on A1A. Our street lights, 50 of them out between Seabreeze and the line. That's why I'm concerned, because these things don't come to us. They may be in rotation, but if it's 10 or 20 years from now, it's not going to help. That's where a tourist it should be now. That's why I was concerned, because we're being ignored often. Secondly, Monday there was a meeting on Main Street with the Bike Week. They put us in a room with 30 chairs or over 100 people. They absolutely oppose, and it's going to come to you, extending it a mile north or south from parking motorcycles. Jill Duquette was there. I worked with her on parking. There's no need for parking on motorcycles. We have plenty of parking. It just has to be assigned. Linkage fees. Be careful with your linkage fees. Faith Group wanted $10 on linkage fees. All right? When other cities are charging 50 cents or $1, $10 is a lot. We're worrying about the cost of housing. Adding another $10,000 or $20,000 to a house is a lot of money. And that's what they want you to do. You say, okay, but they're newcomers though. Let them pay the $20,000. They're already going to pay high taxes because they're starting new. We've been here a while. Our taxes are not too bad. Their taxes are going to be astronomical. Please consider that. I'm glad you brought up the rezoning for our commissions. It'll be 6 years. Why don't we use the same request for proposal that we had the last time? Why should we wait 6 months to get this started? Thank you.
Our next speaker is William Biddorf, and on deck is Thomas Russell.
My name is William Biddorf. I live at 402 East International Speedway Boulevard. First of all, I want to thank all of you for dedicating your time to be up on this what you do for the city. First of all, for a few years now, there's been actually the hurricane damage is what I want to get to. I'm sorry, I'm a little tired. And there's still trash from the past hurricane on East ISB. 1 to the left of me on the city property, 2 at Subway. There's been a lot of vandalism, I guess, in that corner where the subway's been vandalized quite often. A lot of homeless. There's some dilapidated buildings. I think it's like on the corner that Tiernog, and a lot of homeless. So I had a spot in the back. It was mainly just because of the needles that were being left in the vacant lot. I had to cut a bunch of trees out because the city's helped me so much with the grant program and things of that nature. I cleaned it up so I wouldn't have anybody camping out there anymore. We cut back a bunch of trees, cleaned up a few hundred needles that could have been dangerous to the neighbors. What I'm asking is see if we can get them to clean up that trash. I mean, the subway's been out there for over a year. I mean, it's just sitting out there right at the front. When people drive by, they see it. On the city property, there's a bunch there. I mean, I can help. I keep putting it back in a pile, but I just need your help to help clean it up. It looks really bad. And I'm not complaining, to be honest with you. The city's doing a great job. I have no complaints. You know, you stand up for us. I appreciate it. I thank you all. And that's roughly it. God bless you all. And God bless you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate you putting up with me. Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, Lord.
Our next speaker is Thomas Russell, and on deck is Ken Southall. They're passing it out.
Thomas Russell, 603 North Beach Street, the real North Beach Street. You have so many problems that you have to deal with. I feel bad when I come here and make my statements or my complaints. What I thought is, I had somebody mention to me that, you know, most people don't know where the Blue Road CRA is. Not even the people that own property there know of the Blue Road CRA. So I thought I'd get a picture of a map, best I could do. We're handing it out there. If you will put the dock where the small boats are in the top right-hand corner, you will see a big X on this piece of paper. Did you get them? Nobody got them? Uh-oh. Yeah, that's it. Okay, see that big X? That's not included. That's low-income people's houses. To the right of that is a white line, and it goes from Fairview up to Mason Avenue. And you see that big black spot in the middle? Does anyone know what that is besides the mayor? Probably not. Few people might know. Okay, great. That's called the Root Canal. That has been a dumping ground for the city's stormwater system for almost, 70 years or so? I've owned the property 40 years. And at one time, you could actually fish in there. Today, you can't do anything there. It's the closest thing to the contamination that you can find. The muck there is 12 to 3 feet deep, and the reason is there's an outlet that goes into the river. The outlet has been clogged with oyster shells for at least 15 or 20 years. So the water comes in, the city dumps the stormwater there, and all that's left is muck. And I'd like to see some effort on the city's part to get whomever it is possible to work on getting that cleaned up, at least getting it to drain properly into the river. The people on the left side, as I mentioned, it's all low housing, built in the 1925s, and it floods. And there's a lot of people living there. The commercial buildings run up and down the left side of that root canal are all old buildings that don't have much of a chance without some redevelopment. The buildings on the right side is the Blue Road, as everybody talks about. It's got the Sweetheart Trail on it, or whatever you want to call it, and newer properties because they're on the water. And something's got to be done.
Our next speaker is Ken Southall, and on deck is Pierre Lewis.
Hello, my name is Ken Southall, and I'm still dealing with the issue of the flood. And I want to go to the right people to get answers to. I look at the city, and I come to find out the county is more responsible for us than the city. And then they seem not to be able to doing their job. And is there any kind of way we can get the people involved and inform them to who directly to go to when we have a certain problem, and come together and demand that something be done about this situation. do anyone have any suggestions at all? Or can the city get involved with the county and have the county say, well, give us some responsibility because we know the problem, or we can help solve the problem, or help y'all solve the problem, and we can work it together. Am I saying the right thing, or do you understand what I'm asking?
Do you mean for future flooding? Is that what you mean? Over here.
I ain't that, say again?
Do you mean for future flooding? Is that what you're discussing right now?
Now, my question is this. We got problems.
Yeah.
We know the Corps of Engineers are coming in. And permits are still being issued to build homes or add to the situation. And in doing so, are we adding to the problem? Because they come in and say this has got to be done, and the permits we're getting say allowing this particular problem not getting any better but getting worse. So how do we solve that problem?
When we issue our building permits, we take a look at water impact, sort of the floodplains, if a particular building is going to create, and so we actually do take a look at that. So we're already doing that with regards to that. Are you saying a step more?
Mm-hmm. Because like I was like right in the neighborhood, I'm seeing addition being on the same level as the existing house, and they're gonna be flooded out. So if it's gonna be flooded out, what purpose of adding onto this? And the homes that are being built, they're being built above at least 2 feet above the original house. So if all the water is going to go right back and create the problem. And another thing, I'm looking at the railroad system. It's in the flood zone area. It never seems to get flooded out. But when it does flood out, the water does not set and cause a problem. And the amount of money when the homes get flooded out, it could be thousands and thousands of dollars. But these people say, well, no, it don't take as much to fix our problem because we have addressed the problem. It's not as bad as the residents. I'm trying to figure out what are they doing that we're not doing. Because that's just run every day, and we depend upon that. But you never see it being after the water is died down. You don't see that have to be repaired like that. What are they doing that we're not doing?
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, can I say something? The county right now, just so everyone is aware, we have that committee they put together. The county is looking at raising their standards right now, which if they do decide to do that, but they don't want to put it on all the cities, but if they do decide to do that, they actually have control and have us raise our standards as well. And Mr. Gross, have you heard about this as well?
The county charter allows the county to impose environmental standards within municipal boundaries.
And that's why we are, and Ben Bartlett from the county is part of this meeting, this committee, and they're looking at those possibilities. They just don't want to put it on us like that, so they want to have discussions. So.
I know my time is up, but how would that help the existing residents?
It depends on the standards, sir, and how.
I mean, if we live in a flood zone and we're on the ground, how would that help us?
I don't have the answer to that factual question.
But can you find the answer by next time we meet?
Okay, sir, thank you. We're going to let the other speaker speak. I know. Our next speaker is Pierre Lewis, and on deck is, I believe it's Empress.
Pierre Lewis, 130 South Franklin Street. I got comment on that 386, but that wasn't what I was here for. But I've had issues with them too. That debacle, I don't know what's going on with the management of that thing. It's still a problem. But I wanted to comment on something that Commissioner Henry was talking about, and that's the fact that I had a neighbor that lives just around the corner from me. She's a Venezuelan couple, and they're in that place, the Clyde Morris Landing. And since they've been there, they have nothing but issue after issue. Speaks very little English. Luckily, I speak a little bit of Spanish too. So we managed to work her out when she was getting in there. And it's just crazy. But it was months and months of receipts of this job to this job to get her in there. And now that she's there, she calls me from time to time. And she's got a family, and her kids and stuff like that. And it's just amazing how every time there's an issue with the water or the plumbing, it's delayed, or something's going on with the management that's going on there. She would never probably come forth, as I know she'd said to me, is that living there is similar to living in some of the real atrocious places they've seen in Colombia and Venezuela. She said, I thought being here was going to be here. She's here legally. To be here would be great, but she said living in that place, there's a climate where she says it's like this. In her words, she's trying to say it's like the slums that's there. That's what she said. And that's a comment there. So I know that there's issues with that place that's there. And then the last thing I'd like to close with, I think it's House Bill 755, Attorney Gross. And that's the one that deals with cybersecurity, that talks about our training. But I have a pause there because I know in House Bill 755, it was signed into law, what it was really dealing with employees. To your point, I don't know if it really addresses as far as we're talking about city officials as it relates to that. But I do know that there are cases that are out there, and that's exactly correct. If insurance company notices that employees are not trained in cybersecurity, they will push back on handling any ransomware and stuff like that from a company. Now, how that relates to, I guess y'all iron that out when you have your longer meeting on how the standards, how it's supposed to be addressed. But sometimes they won't pay if they know that employees have not been trained. Insurance companies, they're that. That's my only comments. Thank you.
Our final speaker tonight, I believe, is Empress. Mm-hmm. Empress.
Allison DeLauder. You know me, right? All right, starting off, hello, my name is Allison DeLauder. I'm a new small business owner located here in Daytona Beach, also known as Empress Exotics Beauty Bar. Previous donor to many local and non-profit organizations such as Fashion Week on the Beach, Juneteenth yearly fashion shows to feeding the homeless at my new store. As of being a female African-American minority growing up with so many odds stacked against me, I always knew that I wanted to make a difference and had a voice that I should be heard. Who knew on June 6, 2024, I would find my voice of being heard? On that day, I woke up to do what I do every morning, which is my every morning routine, and going to grab coffee from Java Junction. Headed back towards my store as I began prepping to open, I almost met my demise. Taking my everyday route this day wasn't unusual, as police being held on Ridgewood was normal, but an officer following me for blocks with no sirens wasn't. Knowing how unruly Daytona Beach police can be, I lost my youngest uncle at age 19 to the police department in 2019. Growing up, you don't pull a gun on someone unless you have true intent to harm or kill. I just knew I was now at my store and property and I was safe, but I wasn't. As I attempted to back into my parking spot, I looked up to a gun. No sirens, no noise, just a gun pointing to my head. At that point, all I knew is I was innocent and my constitutional rights were violated. In the blinking of an eye, there was 4 to 5 officers pointing guns at me as I was on my knees. To be deprived of everything, even after found innocent, to still search and tow my car from my store because I wouldn't give consent with no apology, no thorough investigation or explanation is what I call a direct insult from Daytona Beach Police city officials. To see a incident report, what you may call disparaging remarks or false statements should be the same for the police. I now suffer from PTSD and was now given meds to cope with life due to police misconduct, and I'm now living a victim of police brutality. To not hear from the city officials like the mayor or chief is why I'm here again today. What happened to me? What happened to the National Crime Victims' Right you talked about in 2022? That was what I seen you said, Mayor. Where's the protection for the citizens who are harmed by the police when they shoot and kill? Where's the mental health, paid leave, and apology to feel so hopeless with so many superiors who have taken an oath to serve and protect their own, but to be the same ones to laugh and ridicule the innocent is why police need better training. I shouldn't be held at 4 to 5 guns by government officials who can't obviously recognize different make and models of a car. I had an Acura. They were looking for a Kia Forte with a male suspect to now be a Hyundai. For the chief to forego a meeting with me and the mayor to follow me on Facebook after I spoke of the officer's negligence with the knowledge for an apology and not at least and get an apology via phone call shows the city of Daytona Beach rather target its residents and
ma'am. Your
exploit
time
them
has
of live
expired.
PD.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
This concludes our meeting. Good night.